Reconvene public session and any reportable action, City Attorney?
There was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Great, thank you. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Grunmeyer. We'll now have the invocation by Pastor Aaron Diaz from New Beginnings Community Church. Hi, Aaron. How are you doing? Nice to see you again.
I'm good, and you?
Good.
Good. Thank you for having me. If you would join me in prayer. Lord, as we come together today to discuss the business of the city, I ask for your presence to be in this room. God, your word says that the governing leaders, those in positions of authority, are placed there by you. They are your servants, and they're sent for our good. I ask, Lord, that you guide the mayor pro tem, and the council members, their teams and the staff as they make decisions, plans, and partnerships on behalf of the Norco residents. Bless them as they give their time, effort, and energy to make this city a great place to live. We pray over this city, Lord, that you would protect the residents and the business owners, that you would watch over their families, their houses, and their livelihoods, and that you would make Norco a prosperous city, not just in wealth, but in the riches of life. Father, that we would all lift up our heads to you and know that our Creator loves us and watches over us. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Aaron. So tonight, the City Council is recognizing February as Black History Month by presenting a proclamation to community members who have contributed to the economic, cultural, spiritual, and/or political development of our city. I would like to invite Dr. Darnell Bing and Dr. Keandra Jimenez to the podium to present information on the Norco Community College Umoja program. Are they with us? Hi, welcome. Good evening. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming out. Okay, we have a microphone there, so there you go.
We
Great.
also have one of our student leaders here with us.
Hi, I'm Audible Turner. I'm the current standing president of the Umoja program, and it's very nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Keandra Jimenez, and I am the English faculty and co-coordinator. Thank you for having us.
Great.
I am Dr. Darnell Bing. I am the Umoja coordinator and the Umoja counselor as well. So what we do with our Umoja program is dedicated to the academic success of our Black and African American student population, and it's dedicated to providing our students with culturally relevant curriculum, in which I will allow Dr. Jimenez to share what she does within her class. But the more important thing that we do is to make sure that we provide our students with a community within the community of our campus. Our students have that opportunity to come and be amongst other individuals that have the same goal in mind of them, other individuals that kind of represent their home style, and be able to be in a safe space and be able to be open and just do the things that they desire without having to feel like anything or anyone is trying to prevent them to succeed in their academic endeavors. We do offer several classes as we do have Dr. Jimenez here, who teaches our English courses. We also have communication courses, and then we also have guidance courses that will allow our students to get prepared for entering into college. So one of the courses that I do teach is our college success course, and it provides student success strategies for our students as they enter into college, as they are transitioning out of high school, and just making sure that they are fully prepared to take on this academic endeavor. But I will pass it over to Dr. Jimenez, and then we'll also give Mr. Turner an opportunity to speak as well.
Awesome, thank you. So what we do in our classroom is we practice a style of pedagogy where we infuse culturally relevant pedagogy. And so what that means is that we are teaching the class from a praxis where the students are they are experiencing the class from a cultural position that is natural to what they would experience at home. What we do in our English class is we cover a lot of texts that are focused on the Black experience. A lot of our students, believe it or not, have not had Black teachers or have not had a chance to read a lot of deep Black scholars. So we read different Black scholars, we practice research. One of the great things about the Emoja program is that we have what's called 18 different practices that infuses our pedagogy. And so these practices range from things like an affect of love. So one of the things that my students hear on the first day of class is, I love you. If no one has told you, if you don't hear it anywhere else, this is a place of love. This is a safe place. This is a place where you can talk about cultural family things. You can just feel safe talking about, we have some students that are from Africa, for example, and they'll talk about jollof rice. And so the Nigerian students, they feel like, no, our jollof rice is better. And the Ghana students are like, no, our jollof rice is better. But the students just feel comfortable to have those kind of conversations as we also delve into research, grammar. I'm a grammar nerd, so we cover all of those wonderful things too. But we also just give our students opportunities to grow, do research, and explore in a space where they feel safe. We also do community research. Community outreach. So we've done outreach at the Senior Citizen Center. Our students go every month to feed the homeless. So we do a lot of things outside of the academics too. And then I'll turn it over to Mr. Turner here.
Hello, as I said before, I am the current standing president of the Emoja program, and one of the things I have decided to take upon myself this year is to try to bridge the gap between our Black students with the STEM community. So as I am a chemical engineering student, I have learned that a lot of the classes I have taken, a lot of the students don't necessarily look like me, and I've learned that it's because a lot of Black students do not feel welcomed in the STEM community. So I have become a tutor for the Emoja program in the rest of Norco College to try to tutor our POC students in classes like chemistry, calculus, and biology, where students don't necessarily feel as welcome within our LRC community because not many of those students look like them. And another thing we have been doing a lot this semester are our reports talks, which open up the conversation, for many different topics that plague our community, like mental health within Black students, politics, something we really want to start touching on more, and just anything else that really encompasses the Black experience as a student of Norco College as a whole.
Wow.
It's one.
Community, I'd like to present a proclamation for all the contributions. Proclamation, whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, a Harvard-trained historian, founded the organization known today as the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, to research and promote achievements by Black Americans and other peoples of African descent. And whereas in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson established the observance of Negro History Week to demonstrate the involvement of African Americans in the development of our American democracy. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, calling upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas since 1976, every American president has designated February as Black History Month and endorsed a specific theme. And whereas in 2024 theme, African Americans and the Arts highlights the significant impact Black Americans have had on visual arts, music, cultural movements, literature, and more. And whereas the city of Norco recognizes its Black history and reflects on the strides we have made to ensure all citizens feel accepted and included. And whereas the city of Norco is a diverse community that is honored to celebrate the history and legacies of African Americans who have contributed to the economic, cultural, spiritual, and political development of our city, state, and country. Now, I therefore, Kevin Bash, Mayor of the City of Norco, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month. Thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate this. I'm going to give this to you or you, whichever one wants it. And thank you so much for coming out. It's really a pleasure. Absolutely. We'll get a photograph. Can I get the council to stand? All right, that was cool. All right, this is one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to call upon the Facilities and Maintenance Director, Hamilton, Amanda, to present Horse Week donations. We have the certificates there, and I'll come down and I'll stand beside, let you lead the way, okay?
Good evening, City Council. Tonight I have a presentation on the generous donation from our Norco Horse Week Committee. As you know, Norco Horse Week is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing the community together by celebrating and maintaining the rural lifestyle that Norco cherishes. The organization also donates profits to the Norco Animal Shelter, recreational programming, and the Rose M. Eldredge Senior Center. The committee is donating utility vehicles along with golf carts to the Ingalls Event Center with the value of over $117,000. These golf carts and utility vehicles will be used by our staff and other rodeo committees to lessen the burden of renting these types of vehicles for our large events. The donation includes 3 2024 John Deere Gators. These are utility vehicles that can haul heavy items and handle tough terrain. These vehicles have a value of over $70,000. The Norco Horse Week Committee is also donating 3 2023 Easy Go golf carts. These golf carts have a value of over $47,000 and will aid in transporting people around the event center. I want to give a big thank you to the Norco Horse Week Committee. We appreciate your support. And with that, I would like to invite Tony Barreto and any other Horse Week Committee members to speak and take a picture with our City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be able to see the fruit of our hard work and to put it back into the community and say thank you to the city and thank you to all the hard work and volunteers. So, thank you. Alan doesn't want to say anything.
I could already tell that he was like kryptonite. So I'm going to say a little bit more than Tony. Without volunteers, Norco would not exist as it exists today. Flat out, unequivocally, it would not exist. And Tony and that whole team that's behind him, and the ones we know, the ones we don't know, without them doing what they do, and their ancestors did, and their ancestors before them for what, 100 years in Norco, 60 years, 50 years, 40 years, 20 years. We would not be Norco without them. And so I want to give the most heartfelt thank you I possibly can. Thank you. So we're going to honor a few people. So how many folks do you have here that we can give certificates to? All right, well, you know what? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 40 people coming up. So I'm only thanking 6 people. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give these to Tony, and if we need more, we'll get more. We'll get a bunch more. The pins are really cool. They're very special. They're very collectible. You can buy one on eBay for almost $1. So why don't we get a photograph? Oh, good, young kids, great. Why don't we all face, let's go ahead and kind of spread out a little bit. You know what, maybe what we ought to do is all come back here so the council can be behind you. Let's come on back. All right, so this is a really cool night because a lot of my favorite people are showing up. The next person up is RCTC Deputy Executive Director, soon to be Director. I always wanted to direct, just never had the opportunity. But Aaron Hake, who I have to tell you is a Norco High graduate, and I've been watching him. Well, you do know that recently, scientifically, it was proven that Norco is the center of the universe. Why are you laughing? Everybody laughs. It's true. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. Welcome.
Great. Well, thank you, Mayor, honorable council members. There's no better evening than being able to, on my way home, come do my job of public service in my hometown in a room full of my neighbors.
And friends.
And friends, yes. Thank you for inviting me. I also want to introduce our community engagement manager at RCTC, Italia Garcia. Recently, and it's her job to be in touch with communities all over Riverside County, including Norco. So tonight you get a 2-for-1 special. I'm here to talk about 2 agencies, of which I'm proud to be the Deputy Executive Director of. The Riverside County Transportation Commission, which is also the managing agency for the Western Riverside County Regional Conservation Authority, which Mayor Bash is the chair of this year. He served on the executive committee for many years, and he asked me to come give an update to all of you in the community on the progress that RCA is making. And actually, just want to start by describing what it is that we do. So we're going to cover transportation. We're going to cover conservation tonight. Transportation is a pretty broad topic. But we're going to start talking about conservation and the Regional Conservation Authority. Did you know that we live in a region that has one of the largest, most innovative and comprehensive, ambitious habitat conservation plans in the United States of America? We do. We actually pioneered habitat conservation planning the way that it's done today back in 2004, when the leaders of this county saw that we were going to be growing this place that is beginning to grow in very, very rapid manner, was going to need solutions to integrate good urban planning with the need to plan our transportation system and the need to protect the environment and the open space that many of us moved here to enjoy. What was happening at the time is that many development and transportation projects were getting held up in litigation and regulatory reviews that were taking many, many years, adding costs to projects. Things weren't happening, and so the county leadership here spearheaded a plan to create the Multiple Species Habitat Conservation Plan, which is now permitted under the state and federal wildlife agencies, and has provided great benefit that I'll talk about momentarily. But the big numbers here are the Habitat Conservation Plan aims to conserve 500,000 acres in western Riverside County, and it covers 146 different species. Now, this plan is designed to provide more certainty, regulatory certainty, to development projects, transportation projects here in western Riverside County, where we have an abundance of biodiversity, an abundance of nature and habitat, and where reviews by state and federal agencies can be quite extensive and laborious, and ultimately, unfortunately, sometimes lead to litigation. So what the plan does is it provides a template that all projects follow. And if you follow that template, you come into RCA, the Regional Conservation Authority, for review. We have 14 days to give you an answer. And after we're done, assuming that it's okay, and we say that your project is consistent with the Habitat Conservation Plan, and you've checked all the proper boxes to protect the species, then we send it off to the state and federal wildlife agencies and say they've met their commitment in the habitat plan. They did what they said we're supposed to do, and then the wildlife agencies at the state and federal level only have 10 days to review and send us back an answer. And where we've seen the most benefit on this is on the transportation side. You can quantify at RCTC that we, on some projects, have saved up to 2 years in delivering a project. And if you're stuck in traffic, you don't want to hear that it's going to take 2 more years to get that project done on the freeway, or an interchange. And so we've seen a great deal of success there. That's also saved. Time is money, right? So costs of things go up every day, and the sooner we can get these projects delivered, the more we're saving money for the taxpayer. The other benefit to this plan is that through implementing it, the open space that we conserve it's in perpetuity. It's there forever. RCA is funding an endowment that will manage these lands forever. Here are 4 of our 146 species. We picked some that you may enjoy looking at. They're charismatic. We have the burrowing owl, the coast range newt, mountain lion, the long-tailed weasel. But in this plan, as I mentioned, there are 146 species that are covered. Many of them are found only in western Riverside County, and some of them only in a certain part of western Riverside County, nowhere else in the world. The mayor has been out to see some of those, some of the areas where we've protected them. Some of them are not as flashy as these animals. They are plants, and if you walked right by it, you might not differentiate it from another plant, but a biologist would walk up to you and tell you that that is a very special, very rare, very important species that plays a role in this ecosystem and why we have biodiversity. So, as part of the plan, we're required, we being cities like Norco and all of your neighbors who are part of the plan, are required to conserve together 153,000 acres over the next several years. We have so far conserved approximately 68,000 of those acres in the last 20 years, and we purchased those acres through what's called the Local Development Mitigation Fee. So a few years ago, the council took an ordinance to update the fee that is charged. We update that from time to time, but any development project that comes in here in Norco, or I should say most development projects that come through the city, have to pay this development mitigation fee that comes to RCA that we use to buy land. We also do receive donations from landowners or development projects, and there are some jurisdictions through the entitlement process require the developer to set aside certain sensitive areas of their property to protect it from development, allow them to develop a portion of it according to how the plan is written, and then they provide the rest of the land to RCA for conservation. Since the plan began in 2004, you, the local jurisdictions, have provided over $470 million to preserve that 68,000 acres. I do want to note that back at the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned we have to get to 500,000 acres. Maybe wondering how these numbers reconcile. So to just the west of us, we have a national forest. Out in the eastern part of the western part of the county, in the San Jacinto Mountains, we have more national forest. We have Bureau of Land Management lands. We have state recreation areas. We have state lands. Those lands all came into the reserve when the plan was created. So those all count. Those are lands that are conserved in perpetuity. The Riverside County Open Space and Parks District owns land that counts towards the reserve. And in fact, the city of Norco owns some land in the Santa Ana River that counts towards the reserve. So thank you. We are steadily trying to acquire more land. In 2023, we added approximately 1,400 acres to our reserve system. We're very proud of that. Here are 3 examples of properties we have acquired in the very recent past, within the last few months. The Barth property is down in the Tanaha area. It's actually west of Temecula. It's up against the mountains. And this is part of an area we are assembling a lot of property to preserve a mountain lion corridor. So mountain lions traverse the Santa Ana Mountains, and there are known populations that go in that the Cresta, Duluth, Tanaha area, and actually end up crossing under and unfortunately sometimes over Interstate 15 into Temecula Creek. And so what we're trying to do is preserve as much land where we know that the mountain lions are traveling so that they have safe passage undisturbed by development. A more recent and local example is Bee Canyon in Corona. There's no sign that says Bee Canyon, but you drive by it every time you go on the 91 freeway. That picture right there is just to the south of the freeway, near the Green River off-ramp. And if you ride on the Santa Ana River Trail, you may notice that there is a large culvert that goes under the freeway. When you ride your bike by it, that culvert is also a mountain lion and other wildlife corridor. So we're preserving that corridor on both ends of the county. And then very exciting, very recently with a state grant, we acquired Walker Canyon, which you may know as the home of the Poppy Super Blue. You may remember a few years ago, we had the Kardashians, we had all sorts of people coming out from all over the world, actually, to visit Walker Canyon because of the California poppies. And we had somewhat of a bloom last year with the heavy rains that we got. We are now on poppy watch, given the rains that we just had. And so be on the lookout for moves there. But that now is in permanent conservation. And actually, most of it was private land. And now it's in public ownership for now. So maybe wondering, how can we go out and enjoy this property? So something that we just did that we're very proud of is a Girl Scout project. There is a Girl Scout in the city of Riverside by the name of Katie Fuller, and she came to us wanting to do a project for what's called their Gold Patch or Gold Award. That's the highest level of the Girl Scouts, I understand. And her idea was to create a youth engagement program for Girl Scouts to go out onto our lands and learn about them and earn something for them. And so with Katie, we developed this patch program that's kind of like what you might have at a national park or state park when you get a junior ranger. So you can go to 146project.org and download a quiz. It'll challenge you to go out and visit one of our properties. It'll ask you some questions about what you see there and to report back on our website the answers to those questions. And when we receive those forms from that child, RCA will mail out one of these patches to them. It's set up for children ages grades K through 8. But if any of you are children at heart and would like to participate, I'm sure we would send you a patch as well. Now, I did mention that the city of Norco does have some conserved lands here in the city, adjacent. folks like to travel around, I think it's important to know that passive recreation is allowed on our property unless we, for some reason, have to close it off to protect the species or to protect safety. So that includes equestrian use. Hiking, walking, and non-motorized biking is allowed on existing trails. So I need to emphasize that. Existing trails. We cannot create new trails. We cannot go off trails. We must leave no trace. We do want people to know that this is public land. There are certain parts of the reserve that, especially those owned by parks districts, that have amenities such as a parking lot, bathrooms, trailhead signage. Most of our property does not, because it's there for the species. We don't have parking lots. We don't have those types of things. So on our website, we do have this map, and you can go see what parts of the reserve do have those facilities that are much more user-friendly. But certainly, you see a sign that says that it's RCA land, as long as it's an existing trail, you're welcome. Now, the future of this plan, I've told you a great story about what we're trying to do. It is very challenging. We simply do not have the funding to do this as quickly as we would like. Eventually, we will have all the funding, but as you all know, real estate is getting more expensive every day, and that's what we're really in the business of doing, is purchasing real estate. So we're aggressively pursuing state and federal grants. We're very fortunate that both the governor and this current presidential administration has emphasized conservation. We would like them to fund it more, but we're pleased to see the conservation initiatives that they've put forward, and it's allowed us to be successful with some grants. We are putting together our new stakeholder committee for the year. We are looking at ways to improve the process of operating the agency and looking to be more strategic in how we do that. And a big topic that's come up recently is our fire management practices. First and foremost, the land is for habitat, but we're also very cognizant that this is a fire-prone area, and we want to do our part to make sure that we're keeping our communities safe with this land. I'd be happy to take any questions on the conservation portion of what I'm talking about, then we could talk about traffic.
Any questions by council? So I'll make a statement on this. This is one of the most important things that we do as a city, because we are preserving land for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, perpetuity. And when you go on some of these properties, which I've been lucky actually with Aaron to go on some of the properties, you don't realize when you're in the middle of them that you're surrounded by homes. And the goal is to create this pathway for wildlife to move from one area to another. Some of the land that's been saved is extraordinary. And it's something that is super, super important. So I really thank the RCA and all the people who put it together. Norco was one of the founding members, and so I'm real proud of that. Next.
Thank you. Yes. So we've been blessed with a beautiful place to live, and lots of people have realized that, so they've moved here. So we have traffic. And so RCTC, Riverside County Transportation Commission, has embarked on a draft traffic relief plan, which is an aspirational vision for countywide transportation improvements. We have a lot of work to do. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. The draft traffic relief plan contains billions and billions of dollars of needed improvements that we've heard from our communities, our elected officials, our stakeholders, needed throughout the county. Now I'm talking about the entirety of Riverside County, from this area all the way out to Blythe. So what's important to note is that the traffic relief plan is a vision, but it's not funded. So the projects therein are things we want to do if we can get them. From interchanges, funding transit, doing basic things like filling the potholes, issue real well, driving, way to work, highway expansions, funding the rail system. RCTC does all of this, and actually more. So we did a public survey last year, a statistically valid public opinion poll that asked what are the most important transportation issues to the residents of Riverside County, and taken as a whole. These are their responses. Lots of emphasis on maintaining roads in good condition, getting out of traffic, making the roads safer. We have a lot of corridors in this county where there are unfortunately high accident rates, high fatality rates that people in district are very concerned about. And then keeping bus fares low for populations. So we developed a plan that has a variety of types of investments, from those local streets and roads to the highways, major regional connections that will connect communities. We have communities here in this county that don't have ready access to an expressway or a highway, mainly like Hemet and San Jacinto. You have to meander through city streets to get to a major transportation facility. It creates a lot of issues. So we're still building out this county as it grows. Public transportation, we've heard a lot about the need for increased public transportation due to people in alternative. Commuter assistance, what that means is freeway service patrol. You may have seen those white tow trucks on the freeway that go around and are occasionally helping people, or maybe they're motoring behind you, looking for an opportunity to help. This is an RCTC funded service that when they come to help, there's no charge for it. They get you off the road if you blew a tire, if you need a gallon of gas, your car breaks down, they'll get you off the freeway to a safe place. Active transportation, this can be things like the Santa Ana River Trail or other trails. And then what we've seen a need for in order to get a lot of these projects done is the need to do environmental mitigation, which I just talked about. These are requirements if we're going to make the infrastructure improvements. We have to be able to mitigate impacts. So there's a lot in the traffic relief plan. It's 27 pages, but I just wanted to highlight a few things that are relevant to the city of Norco or this area. I want to be cognizant that when it comes to transportation, people don't just stay within their own city for the most part. They cross jurisdictional boundaries. So a lot of these are things that improvements in the area, not necessarily in the city, but we're talking about improving traffic on I-15 where it gets jammed up south of 91. Looking at increasing Metrolink service. We are developing a concept to create a transit facility in the median of the 91 that connects into the North Main Florida Transit Center, so that buses can use the express lane. So you can just go to that transit center there, get on a bus and hop right into the middle of the 91 and bypass all the traffic. We're also looking, I should have had the Santa Ana River Trail on here, but that is a project we're helping deliver, help fill in the gaps on that project. And on from there. So what's also included in the plan is a recognition that we need to be accountable to taxpayers for the funding that is put into the transportation system. If the plan is funded, and I'll talk about that and how that's going to happen in a minute if it happens, that we have audits, reviews, that there's disclosure, transparency, and that it's important to make sure that funding cannot be diverted to Washington or Sacramento. These are local funds under our control. We're controlling our own destiny. RCTC has a statute, it's in law, that any local measure that RCTC administers can only put 1% of that funding towards administrative salaries and benefits. The other 99% goes to projects and services. And then by the very nature of RCTC, it's collaborative, it's consensus driven. Commissioner Hanna serves on the board today, and he's there with 32 other colleagues that are coming up with county-wide decisions. So, as I mentioned, the plan is not funded, but if it were to be funded, the idea on the table is to put a measure on the ballot in November for a 1% sales tax countywide. That would generate over 30 years, approximately $25 billion, specifically $20 billion in this part of Western Riverside, to fund those improvements. Over the course of those 30 years, our economists estimate that it would support approximately 168,000 jobs in the county, generating a workforce income of approximately $11 billion and an total economic output of approximately $31 billion. Now, we know that that's a big ask to bring to the voters. And so as part of our public opinion poll, we asked, would they be willing to vote for it? Would they be willing to make that investment? So the first question we asked is, do you even see a need for more transportation funding in Riverside County? And 82% of the respondents to that poll said yes, they see a need, not just for something to be done, but for it to be funded. So then we asked the question, would you be willing to vote for a 1% sales tax measure to fund those improvements? And 67% of the respondents to that poll said yes, they would. Specifically in the Corona, Norco, Eastvale, Yuba Valley area, the number was 66%. So that's why we kept putting the plan together and why we're out talking to the public now. The commission is looking to adopt this plan within the next couple of months, probably April. So we're looking for your feedback now. And this is how you can provide it. The QR code on the screen will take you right to the plan. You can also go to trafficreliefplan.org. Email us, call us, any way you'd like to give your input on the contents of the plan is really what we're focusing on is, do we have the right projects? Do we not? Did we miss something? What would you like to see? So that's why we're here tonight. Great for me.
Aaron, thank you very much. Warren, you have something to say since you sit on that commission?
No, he just explained it as good as anybody can, and we spent 2 days last month working on a bunch of this up there at Palm Springs. But myself, I think there's a lot of good ideas going on. I think right now we've got a lot of good projects going on, especially down 15 freeway south, trying to ease congestion there at Elsinore. Then you get on down to Marietta and Temecula and everything. I think those will work out pretty good. But that's did a good job there, Aaron. Thank you very much.
Greg, anything?
It's always a pleasure to listen to you.
Well, thanks.
I just remember that we've been friends for years and you were just a planning commissioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All folks want new roads, right? Potholes repaired, all of that. Then when it comes time, who's going to pay for it becomes the difficulty. We learned that with Measure R, as you're well aware of. What on this measure, what would be the percentage required for this to pass? Is that all of Western Riverside voters, Riverside County voters, or?
Yeah, so we only have authority to put on a countywide ballot measure. So it would be put on the ballot as such, and the vote calculation would take the totality of the county. Couldn't, if it passed in certain areas, we wouldn't be able to just implement it in certain areas.
Right.
It's countywide.
But is there an overall percentage of the voters? Is it like 2/3?
Yeah, so our current statutes are different than cities.
Okay.
So we have a statute that says that we need a 2/3 vote for it to pass. We are aware that there is an initiative on the ballot this November that would allow infrastructure investments and some other types of investments to pass with a 55% threshold. And so we're monitoring that. So depending on that outcome, that could affect what the threshold is. But currently, RCTC statutes say 2/3.
Thank you, Aaron.
And that's how our previous measures have passed in the county.
Good to see you again.
Likewise, pleasure.
Catherine?
No questions. Thanks for coming in the information.
Robin? Thank you, Aaron. I guess tomorrow Ann Mayer gets an award or something somewhere.
Yeah, we'll be at Good Morning Corona.
Yeah, Good Morning Corona. Yeah. Guess we'll see you then. See you then.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Moving on to council reports on regional boards, we'll start with Robin Grunmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
Moving on to Catherine Alleman.
Yes, on February 15th, I attended a Northwest Mosquito and Vector Control District Board of Trustees meeting. And one of the main items for discussion was just the work that our district does throughout the region. And I'm very glad that we have our districts. I know a small portion of your property tax goes to pay for the district and the work that they do. We've seen with changing temperatures, we've seen vectors and mosquitoes and diseases appear in areas where they haven't, for example, dengue. And so they are always constantly monitoring that and preparing for any potential outbreaks. And they're having this month a tabletop exercise to kind of practice and prepare for that, which is much better than a city which didn't have a district like this. And there's one staff member who's trying to run a whole emergency management system for an outbreak. We have extremely educated people with their PhDs in looking at these diseases and how to control them and best manage them. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mayor Pro. I broke it. Councilmember Hannah.
Well, nothing to report from RTA, and Aaron just did a good job for RCTC, but I attended ribbon cutting at the Love and Hugs indoor playground party, ribbon cutting with Mayor Bash and Councilperson Grunmeyer this last Saturday. Just right down the street here by Norco Best. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Newton.
Thank you, Mayor. February 13th, Councilmember Grunmeyer and I met with Public Works Director to continue our subcommittee work with the mixed solid waste proposals, which we'll hear a little bit about later tonight. And then just to add, today, Councilmember Hannah and myself met with Planning Director, excuse me, and the building official to discuss the updating some old resolutions that affect animal keeping with the size of stalls and coverings and things like that. We had a real good meeting, and I think we'll be able to bring a resolution here soon. No rush to it, but just clarifying some old resolutions that were back in the late 90s and kind of getting those updated. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Well, I guess the highlight of my week was I attended the CPUC hearing with Assemblyman Assaili and Resident John Rigler. Assemblyman Assaili is just spearheading this in a way, and we'll talk about it later, but I was just very, very pleased that he showed up and he actually seemed to get the commissioner's attention. I don't know what that means, but I'm real pleased with what he's doing. And again, we'll discuss that in a little bit later. And the Love and Hugs, if you got kids, that place is fantastic. That's really a beautiful operation. And my daughter, who has a 3-year-old, says she uses them all the time. And I guess they're packed. So if you have any little kids, take them to Love and Hugs. And that's all I have. We're going to move on to public comments. And do we have any public comments today?
Yes, Mayor, just a moment. This is the time when persons wishing to address the presiding governmental body regarding the consent calendar or matters not on the agenda may be heard. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. The governmental body shall not discuss or act relative to any general public comment. The first speaker is Tammy Norman.
Howdy.
Hello, good evening. My name is Paige Cleveland, and I'm the current Junior Miss Norco Mountain Posse Rodeo Queen for the year of 2024.
Hello, my name is Mia Cannon, and I'm your Young Miss Norco Mountain Posse Rodeo Queen for 2024.
Hi, I'm Tammy Norman, and I'm on their committee for some reason. They decided to add me this year.
Okay, so good evening again, Mayor Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Newton, Council City members, and city staff. On March 2nd, the Norco Mountain Posse Rodeo Queen pageant is hosting for the first time a pageant prep clinic at the barn from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We would like to invite you all to drop by and see what these future rodeo queens go through to be representatives for their cities and rodeo committees. We know some of you will be volunteering your time with the community cleanup, so feel free to stop by afterwards or anytime during the clinic. Thank you all, and we hope to see you there.
Great, thank you. Can you make sure we get that information maybe to our city clerk?
Of course.
All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
And our next speaker would be Aaron Williams.
Mr. Williams, welcome. Nice to see you again.
Hi, good to see you. Backyard trails. In a certain part of town, the trails that are behind the houses are a vital part of the trail network. I think sometimes there's a perception that it's some kind of bonus trail or some kind of fancy benefit that's like above and beyond the trail system. They are a core part of the trail system. My house has a sloped concrete driveway out the front. It has a trail in the back. My house was designed and built for horse access out of the back of my property. If you want to go from Corden to Ted Brooks Arena, there is no front trail going down Vine right there. There's no city trail there. The trail in that neighborhood is behind the houses. So when Measure R was passed, the city kind of took on maintenance of the, let's say 90% or so of the trails. Some trails were not included in that. And I think the backyard trails should be treated the same as the rest of the trails. They're a vital part of the network. I think a big part of us having not just horse property, but a horse community is the trail network. It's not the only thing, but I think it is a core element of an integrated horse community. Volunteerism has come up a bit, and I think that is a great point. I definitely think we have some volunteers, some of them are in the room today, that can help with weeding and things like that. But we have problems beyond weeding. This isn't just about people who don't want to go out with a weed eater and knock down some weeds. We have encroachments. Some are small, some are completely blocking trails. Where a resident has extended a fence to completely block the trail. There's no longer a trail there because somebody has taken it. I can't fix that without probably the sheriff getting involved. So I need the city to take care of that. I can't do it. There's a lot of erosion issues. There's fence post footings that are floating in the air because the ground isn't holding the fence post anymore. There are fences falling down. Large trees, 20-foot palm trees, which maybe I could get a chainsaw and go for it, but I'm probably going to take out somebody's fence, probably myself at the same time. Anyway, all those things are very important, and they go beyond what we can do on our own. So the Stuck Committee voted in summer 2022, fall 2022. They voted unanimously to recommend to council to use Measure R funds to remediate the problems of the trails. Public Works put together a great report on that. I haven't seen anything. It's been not quite 2 years, coming up on 2 years. I would love to see some action taken. The condition of the trails is getting worse. It's not getting better. So I would appreciate anything you could do to try to address that issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And our next speaker is Greg Bowen.
Mr. Bowen.
How are you guys? On a light note, thank you guys for everything you do. Robin, all you guys. I mean, every time I turn around, you guys are always involved in everything. I'd like to thank everybody that's out here. I mean, you look at Rural, you look at Trails Commission, you look at Planning Commission, Horse Week, Posse. And I'm going to forget some, and I apologize. These are all people that have come to this community, and I see you helping, and I'm telling you, thank you for all the help you do for us. And it's not enough. We need to do more. We've been wanting to get stuff taken care of, like our back trails. It needs something to be addressed with it. And also, we need to get rid of the big green fence that's at the arena. We'll just keep saying that until it actually happens. But you guys do an awesome job. Amanda, it's a pleasure working with you. She's got us in her heart. And that's pretty much all I got. And for everybody out there, it's volunteers. I've been really volunteering a lot lately. and it's been my pleasure, working with everybody. It's a nice, warm family, and you guys are a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have no further comments for general public comment. Thank you.
Closing public comments. I'd like to know where a trail is completely blocked. If you could let her know that. We're now going to move to our consent calendar. Do any council members have anything that needs to be pulled? Greg?
3F, 3G,
Berwin? Robin? Catherine?
No.
Do I hear a motion to approve the rest? Do I hear a second? So we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Please vote. Councilmember Alleman,
Yes.
Thank you, Catherine.
motion passes unanimous.
Moving to item F. Mr. Newton.
I guess my first question, Lori, is this should I direct my questions? Is this your report or to Chad? Evening. Sorry. So my concern on this is we went out to bid on this trail fencing project, and staff is recommending rejection of the bids and then to rebid the entire project. So we did receive one protest letter, and going through the background on this is that, I guess more for the audience since we already know, it states under awarding of contract and the specifications, it reads, the award of this contract, if made, will be based on the contractor's bids received and will be compared based upon the lowest responsible bidder's base bid only as determined by the agency. And then in this case, looking at the numbers, we have a contractor that has, let me back up a little bit. The construction contract, if awarded, will, at the discretion of the city council, include base bids and may include additive alternates as funds are available. So the way I'm looking at this is, even though the intent was possibly to combine the two, the documents state base bid only. So we have an apparent low bidder at base bid, but when you combine the alternates with the removals, okay, that flips, and the apparent low bidder is now in the second position. I don't think this is fair, reasonable. It's something that we need to clean up in our bid documents, and that, I think I understand the reasons we've never run across this before, but it just, to me, it just doesn't seem that it's fair to the contractor that is the apparent low bidder. If the intent was to combine both, the bid documents, I feel, should have said that was the fact, okay, that it's remove and install lump sum. So I think we have the availability, trying to find some solution to this. It's on the removals on the alternate. We would have a choice to rebid the alternate. Obviously, we could rebid the entire project, but I'm not recommending that. We could negotiate the alternate. In the past, we've used combinations of CAL FIRE to do removals, but I know that's not reliable depending on their schedule. We have volunteer groups, specifically the Horsemen's Association, that assists with removals to supplement their inventory for replacement of the old wood fencing. So my recommendation is that we follow the contract, we accept the base bid of the apparent low bidder, period, and then your choice on, or how we discuss on how you want to handle the alternates. Any comment or I mean, you don't need to.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to comment, but it was just a statement
Sure.
of the group or not. So, in general, dealing with the errors on staff, we never caught it. It wasn't the intent. The intent was to do what the legal language should have said was the intent is to give it to a low bidder for base bid and for base bid and add alternates combined. Realistically, we should have changed it in the first place just to be 2 bid items together. We kind of parsed it before years ago because we were hedging our bets with trying to use CAL FIRE crews or our own crews. And realistically, and that was really in the time frame when we did have Measure R. And since we've had that so last several years, we've never had this issue come up, and we never
Right.
the language was
Right.
wrong. So again, that's on me as the director managing this project as it went out. So going forward, certainly what we'll be doing is it's all going to be included. Because obviously bidding something and having one contractor do everything is the most desirable, because in going to your comment, rebidding just the portion of the removals and maybe getting another contractor to remove those, you then get another contractor blaming the others if removals weren't done right, if they left foundations in place, and it impacts them and that delays them, etc. So having the same contractor, they're responsible for everything, is cleaner. And that's why when it was originally brought to my attention, recognizing simply up front, that was a mistake on our part. And to me, the fairest way would be to all the bidders would be just to rebid it. That way we clean up the language, make it both items as one in the bid documents, and that way everybody knows what they're bidding to and correcting the error is what we felt, and I felt was the most appropriate way of handling the issue. And I guess I'll leave it at that at this point. So
Sure.
I'll go over templates.
And I'm not, believe me, I'm not taking this at you as a mistake. We've never run across this situation before, so it never popped up. Interesting that my concern is on a rebid, those numbers go 2 ways. They can all go higher. And when a contractor looks and goes, wow, I left too much money on the table, I'm going up. Or it can get real silly the other direction. Interesting to note, the 2 other bidders on this project that were previous did installations for us that were low bidders, Fence Corp and Red Hawk, right? I think in a sense that, look where their numbers were this time. The highest of all your bids. So that's what I mean. My concern is your numbers could go higher than what we have. I know Robin wanted to pull this also.
Robin?
Yeah, I
Thank
just
you,
have a
Chad.
couple of questions because and I think this, Greg kind of alluded to it at the beginning, but the report is from Lori. but prepared by Chad. So I wanted clarification on why the report is from Lori, like if you had made the decision that the bids all needed to be rejected and so the report was from you, or what the relation is on that. And
No,
why this
I
is-
apologize. It's just an error. We have two different fields where you enter the from and prepared by, and it just must have been checked with by my name.
Okay.
No, nothing intentional there.
Okay.
I wondered why you asked me if it was my report. That's why. I'm
There's
so
two
sorry
of
about
them that are different this
okay.
month, so you'll get the next one in a minute.
Okay.
I can explain what happened there. So
Okay.
In prior staff reports, we normally, with the prior city manager initially working about, we would normally say it. We wrote it, but and it came from the city manager. That was recently changed to where now we can do who wrote it, and we mean if, like, say, if Sam wrote it for me, I think my report, or if I wrote it, it's still from me. So that was my mistake on old habits of clicking on Lori.
Okay.
It should have been, I wrote it and it's from me.
Okay, perfect. So I'm in line with Greg. All the numbers are on the table, and so I think rejecting all the bids and redoing it, we're going to be the loser in that deal. That's just my personal opinion. It could turn out different if that's the way it went. And just the correspondence, the little bit that has happened, it was a mistake, and it should have just been said, hey, we made a mistake. Here's one of our options, or give us more than one option of rejecting the bid, because I would like to just go with award the contract and figure out how we do the removals some other way. I like Greg's idea of letting them rebid and see, where they come back at, or negotiating, but I don't know legally how that works as far as having all the bids there. But those were my comments on
If you don't mind, I did talk with the city attorney about this issue, and I think she has some ideas of what you potentially could do that you might want to discuss.
Yeah, so if we've rejected the idea of rebidding, if you want to accept the lowest bidder, which in this case we're talking about the base bid. So the lowest base bidder, which I think we should note between the lowest base bidder and the next person, is $20,000 with the alternative. So that's the issue with picking the lowest base bidder, is that it's not technically the lowest bid that we got. However, we're here, and that's just what the situation is. So we can accept the lowest bid and either issue a change order for the alternative under the bid that was submitted, meaning we would take the lowest base bid and then the alternate, which is higher than the other person, but we could do that, do a change order and just accept it as what was submitted. Or I liked the idea that was floated by you, accept this bid. We do not have to accept the alternatives. It says it on there. We can basically do whatever we want on the other second part of the project, either rebid it or take the one that was already submitted with the lowest base bidder. But I liked what you said about maybe we just accept the lowest base bid and then figure out what to do with the other half of the project. However, in talking with Chad, when he's talking about the fence removal and everything, issues for staff and the ease of fluidity of having the same contractor do it. So if those concerns are worth $20,000, then maybe you'd want to go ahead and just issue a change order on the lowest base bid for the alternative portion. If it's not, if you want to see what else is out there and see if you get any better numbers, you can just accept the base bid contract and deal with the second half of the project.
So through all the legalese,
Yeah.
accept the base bid, and Chad could he negotiate the removals with the lowest base bidder?
So the issue with that is because we have everybody else's bids in, now it kind of looks like we're bid shopping,
Got
right?
it.
Because we
Okay.
can see everyone's numbers. So that's why I would recommend, if you're going to accept the lowest base bid contractor, and you want to go with them for the removal, just issuing the change order. Unfortunately, we are going to incur
the extra costs that the other people didn't submit, but it gets you out of any shenanigans or saying you were trying to manipulate and get a better alternative. If you want to go ahead and accept the base bidder. Or I do think that you could reopen it up again for the second part of the project, and rebid just that portion. I think you could. But if you wanted to just accept the base bidder to avoid any speculation of, we already told you what this is and now you're trying to negotiate it and get it lower, I don't think we can do that.
And you don't, curious to, trying to recall in public works bidding, there's a time limit on protest. I think it was, I'm trying to remember, I thought it was 10 days.
That's what I thought too.
Okay, so
Yeah.
any of the other bidders, they're out of that window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Catherine, anything?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. Berwin?
Just one last thing. I do agree with Chad in the sense that if we do go out and rebid and it's another contractor, the finger pointing isn't worth the money. My motion is to accept the lowest base bidder and write a change order for the alternate.
Do we have any public comments?
I have no public comments for this item.
Opening, closing public comments. Do I have a second on this motion? Do you have a second from Bernmar? Any other discussion? Catherine?
Mayor, point of clarification. So with that direction, after the vote, assuming the vote passes, then the item will come back to you at next meeting for award of the contract. You don't actually have contract documents. So I'll just go on the consent for next meeting.
Catherine, anything?
Yeah, no, I would just add, I mean, at this point, I lean more towards what Chad is saying, in terms of just rejecting them and going back out. I feel like we've done that before, and that's kind of the fairest system since the bid was misinterpreted. I understand that could change the numbers, but I feel like that's what we've done in the past, so that's what I would like to do here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Berwin? No discussion? All right, so looks like we're ready to vote. Can you restate the motion, please?
The motion is to accept the lowest base bidder and write change order for the removals. Yes? Okay.
Yes, please vote.
Please vote. Councilmember Alleman,
No.
motion passes with Councilmember Alleman voting no.
Thank you all. Moving on to 3G, right?
All right. So this is for a proposal for water, sewer, and recycled water rate study in an amount not to exceed $88,655. I know we had talked about this earlier, and you were given the direction to bring it back at a later time, if I'm not mistaken. For me, there's still some financial information that has not been provided. We have asked for a clear delineation of where our structural deficit is for our budgets for the city, and that has not been provided. These two funds, with the exception of the reclaimed water, are fine. And so I just don't feel like we need to spend the money at this point in time to have a water rate study done when there's other other things on the plate, maybe that need to be done. And again, I would like to have a better determination on where this structural deficit is at specifically before we start spending more money on consultants. And then the only other thing that I'll kind of add to that is, we implemented the water rate increases not too long after I joined council. And then the proposal was to increase sewer rates. And we, did not do that. And that fund's still healthy. So there's a little bit in the back of my mind as well that we were told in that study that we needed to increase sewer rates. And the fact of the matter is we did not need to increase sewer rates, or that has not been our experience to this point in time. So I just don't feel like having to pay a consultant for this at this point in time, when the last time it was done, it was 50% correct. So, and again, that's just my personal opinion. So just not in favor of this at this time.
Greg?
Well, one, I appreciate you. Our request back in August of last year was asking you to bring this back at this date. So I do appreciate you doing that. I think for all the reasons Council Member Grunmeyer brought this up, I agree with, and that for today, that our water and sewer funds are healthy. We know in the future, at some point down the road, we're going to have to address this. And I just don't think that the situation we are in today, I just don't feel it's that prudent to spend almost $90,000 on a consultant to tell us that, in a sense, yes, you're going to have to raise water and sewer rates and you need more employees. The timing isn't correct. So I'm of the feeling that, thank you for bringing this back as we asked before. And I think we should once again look at this at the end of this year or the beginning of the following.
Erwin?
I want to second Greg's motion first of all, but I guess that was a motion. Anyway.
I sought that public comment, so.
Okay, well. You said you got to have public.
Nope, we don't.
Okay, Chad, this is for you. Chad, this is for you. It says on here, lost my place now, about the reclaimed water, that you're gonna have to build a pump station and stuff for that to furnish water for the reclaimed water for Norco. Where did that go in here? Is that for real?
Yes.
Okay, several years ago, and I don't know, maybe Greg and Kevin can remember, when they went through and put in all new water lines all through town, and they put the purple lines in there for recycled water. I think one of them goes to Pike Peak on it. One of them cuts through over here, hillside, built over that area. Is that right? And then the one go to the lake at the golf course.
It basically just cuts only across town from Fifth Street, and it ends up basically up here.
And we're not using them.
That pipe right now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, how long has it been in the ground? 7 or 8 years?
Been in since 2006, 5, 6.
18 years. All
Every
right.
time we built the booster station at Rickford, thinking we can use the water, and it took until 2018, 19 to get the state finally approved it.
Yeah, because they had to wait till they could get across the bridge over on River Road.
No, we've had it available since 2000. Since 2000.
And then they were gonna sell water, recycled water to Corona and everything. So how come we're just now getting ready to start using recycled water? spent all that many years building this. I mean, I know it's not your fault, but it didn't get pumped in then.
It's mainly because, you know, while Norco was trying to be forward-thinking in use of recycled water, it's very prevalent, certainly in Orange County, out here to try to use recycled water, and we built that infrastructure that we've done. The state had not approved the use of the water yet, and it took years and years and years, and there's been legal battles between Orange County Water District to not allow that to occur. They want the water to go down the river because they benefit from that. That comes from the treatment plant. And so finally, after a couple decades of battles, they finally got approval from the state to officially now start using the treated water from the sewer treatment plant for tertiary use as reclaimed water. That had finally occurred in 2019. So since then, we've been trying to work with, now that we have approval, work with the other member agencies to develop a plan to start using it, meaning building a regional pump station that we all use and share to deliver water to everybody, or would Norco rehabilitate the existing pump station that we built in 2006, which now is defunct and not working because it's sat all over almost 2 decades. So now we're at that point where we're looking to invest in RCRA as a group, spending money to build a singular pump station that we all share and will use, and then that water will be delivered through the pipelines that we already have across town, which will deliver water to the Lake Martonian, to our 3 primary parks along that route, which is Wayne Macon, Snipes, and then one up right across the street from Ingles. And then from that point, we determine whether or not we can get additional customers based off how far we need to go to add more pipe or lineage, etc. So we, unfortunately, while we were being aggressive way back when, thinking that we could do something positive, it just legally we weren't allowed to, even though we put stuff in the ground. We had to sit and wait.
Okay, well, like I said, I wasn't aware of that. I thought when they put it in, it was working and they were selling water rolled in.
Never had a drop of water.
That's another one of those genius moves, and again, this is not yours, where they pave the street, and then they come along later and they cut a trench in there and put water lines in, and they have a dip in the road. That's all I have there. Thank you.
Catherine?
Yes, so I sent a question over about this item, and then I have a few more. But just for the benefit of our discussion and the public, the question I sent was, in the staff report, there was a statement that the water system is simply not generating sufficient revenue to complete the current 5-year list of capital projects. And so I asked for the numbers and the data behind that, if you could share that information.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were showing an email or something. Sorry. Yes. So at this point, in working with finance department, and I guess let me back up and say, if we've given you the impression of the belief that everything is fine, then I have not done my job correctly, because we should be able to provide you the information that shows you where we stand and why we need to do these things. And it's always something you need to do when you need to evaluate where you stand. And doing a study doesn't mean anything's going to happen. It just gives you information. It says where you stand now, where you are, and then what you need to be based off of your overall goals. And certainly for what Mr. Councilman Newton's talked about, it is definitely not going to tell you how many employees you need. It's not about that. It's about how do you generate the revenue needed to do what the goals are. And like as Catherine Alleman indicated, we're generating about $1.3 million to the positive that goes to CIP the last 2 years. Our CIP over the next 5 years is averaging $6 million. So I only have enough money for this current fiscal year to fund the projects that we're doing. All the other projects that I have projected, desired to do, that we need to do, there is no planned funding that will cover those. So basically, in the current queue of projects, and we have 4 main projects that are primarily in this current year, which are all mainline projects, which includes Corridon, Temescal, Western, and also 6th Street.
will take every drop of money that we currently have in our budget. And then at that point, after that, I will only generate, assuming we continue selling the amount of water we have, which we now are selling less amount of water, or about 1,000 acre feet this last year that we didn't sell versus prior years. It's just more demands, weather, a little bit of conservation, things like that. And that goes in cycles. But so for me, in the planning part, I just need to be able to provide you the information. One way I can provide that information of what the options are, knowing if we're truly going to support the 5-year plan as we approved. I don't have a mechanism to fund that right now. And I basically, next year's budget, it's going to be, there's no projects because there's no money there. Or it's going to be just the carryovers that from this year that I'm carrying over, and we're going to complete them. My goal with this is really just to bring you information that says, if we're going to keep this 5-year goal at this level of projects, here's the amount of money you need to generate. How could you do that? What are the options? And that's what the consultant will do, to bring that information to us, say, here's your funding options, how you do it, whether it's straight rate increase, to generate $6 million on a pay-go basis. Is it you do a smaller increase in order to generate the money because you're going to pay debt service on a loan from the state, and who has 1.9 interest loans that they offer with almost unlimited money that you could do to do capital projects. There's different mechanisms, and my job is to bring that to you and say, here's those options. And in the end, you may decide to do nothing. To Robin's point about sewer had a very high amount of funds available in the capital when we started the rate study. We already knew that. Even with that, the consultant recommended a very tiny increase each year, which we ended up not doing. Part of that was because we're still healthy of the last couple of years, is because we're just now ramping up the major projects finally for sewer, which is the lift station, which each of those is coming in at a very heavy price, which council's already approved 4 of them total so far, and we spent probably at least $6 million to do those 4, and there's 2 more that we're looking to do this current fiscal year budget to design. And so we're starting to chip away at that money pretty quickly to do a lot of the major projects. So that fund is now definitely on. But again, I didn't bring you that information. That's on me to say, here's where we currently stand, here's what we're projecting. So, I take that as a responsibility that I didn't do enough in the staff report to demonstrate where we stand. But I do strongly encourage you to recognize that we do need to do this study just for our own information to know where we stand. It doesn't mean we're proving anything of any rate increase. It's just information. And to wait till the end of the year is not, we're not going to have any better situation. It's not going to change. There's going to be less in the bank account. We spent more money than we originally had to fund the projects that we're planning on doing. It'll be a different situation. And I'd rather get ahead of the game so that at the end of the year, when we produce the study and we have information, we start talking about it, you're in a position to say, okay, we're not willing to do anything right now because we feel we don't need to. The data didn't demonstrate we needed to, or it did, but we're still not prepared to do anything right now. Or we don't like the options. But it's just meant to give you the information, especially for staff, where we stand, because that's our job to tell you where we stand. And that's why I highly recommend the council approve this item, because we need to start this work, especially when it comes to recycled water. I do need to establish recycled water rate. We're going to go forward, and it is a future item that's going to come up to hopefully the next meeting, is about going forward with our final agreements with Rick Greta and those parties to fund those improvements. And at that point, I need to be able to establish rates for the customers that we have, which is Andy, ourselves, and the name, what we're going to charge them. And the consultant would do that work to establish that and help us determine how that rate should be established and what the rate should be. So that, in that particular role. So I appreciate your time, and I just wanted to give you my thoughts on that as well.
I have more questions, Chad. So would you say, you said then that the last 2 years we've spent from our water fund about 1.3 million towards CIP projects. So would it be fair to say about 750,000, 800,000 each year the last 2 years has gone to the CIP?
What is
or would it just take that? Like I'm looking at our budget numbers from our revised budget from this meeting, And it says revenues are about 13,000, expenditures around 13,500. So based on what you said, that means out of those funds, we've only had, about 800,000 or so, right? Give or take. This is napkin math. This is not, exact calculations to go towards the CIP projects. However, we have coming up millions and millions that we need. Would you say that's just a fair generalization?
Yeah, and I think in what I provided you in response to the email was, and I checked this with finance. Finance has indicated that each of the last 2 years, they've only moved after all expenses have been justified for O&M, et cetera, and versus revenue and expenses, only 1.3 million has gone towards CIP. That's what's been available to move to CIP to fund projects. So again, which is far less than what we're projecting to try to accomplish. So for me, it's looking at in this next budget cycle, if we're not going to be looking at doing those projects, then I should maybe reduce those projects to match what the revenue is, which is basically that is not even a full street project to replace a water main. Most recent one we just did this past year, that was Bluff Street, that was 1.5 million just to do that street. So you can get an idea if you're not even generating enough to do a block or a long segment.
Correct. So, and I wanted to come back to Robin's point about the structural deficit issue and how we asked for this to come back later in the year, which I supported as well. And I don't want to conflate the two issues, because our water fund, and perhaps it's not, right? And I'm not there to see faces on what is happening, but the water fund is an enterprise fund, right? Which is separate from our general fund, where we're looking for this kind of structural deficit and the recommendations at our last time that we set our budget, right, were to pull some money from Measure R. We decided not to do that. We really wanted to dive into and see what the patterns and trends have been with some of our contracts that continually come under estimates, and our budget is very conservative. But the water fund, we're not, it has to be self-funding, right? It's a different kind of fund than the general fund. So I see it as a separate piece, kind of outside that structural deficit that we were talking about with Measure R and public safety. And we do need a rate analysis for reclaimed water, it being part of RCRA, and working on that project and coming to finally some consensus after years of working on that. And then I also want to say, when this came up, I think a year ago or so or more, I spent a lot of time talking about water and this enterprise fund with our former city manager. And what he observed, or what I heard from him that he observed, and what I have observed, I think many people have observed, is that our water system seemed to be failing at a higher than normal rate. And so one of the things that I wanted to do before we even looked at a rate study was have someone come in and look at our water system, which is something that I had talked about with our former city manager, and see, were there operational inefficiencies? Were there things that we could improve upon that would create better conditions for our water system? Were there things that basically the city could do? And we paid for a consultant to come in and analyze, our public works and our water system and our sewer, and give us a bunch of recommendations on things that we could improve. And one of those things was to continue planning and investing in our water and sewer systems through the capital improvement program, and increase the capital planning horizon, because the data that they pulled for our leaks and breaks is that our system is significantly degraded. And they had data on other cities in terms of, here's how many leaks and breaks are in, the city's water systems who are operating at the, 10% most efficient best, and then 25%. And we were below all of them with our number of leaks and breaks, with just our infrastructure that is failing us. And so I'm concerned that if we continue, that I see it a bit of kind of kicking the can down the road. I don't want to put our city or our residents in a position where we would have to do any very large rate hikes that those that are sitting on the dais had to do previously, right? And I felt those as a resident. And so having the information, I think it's better in terms of being able to be set up for our recycled water and really analyze and see what is it going to take. Because I do know that we have maintenance that we need to do, but we also have this infrastructure failure that keeps happening. And there's a number of recommendations that were in that study that we could do. But one of them some of them require funding. We need more staff, right? Which that again would require more money. But we also have these issues that we need to fix. If a water main breaks, right, or is leaking, we have to take care of it. And some of these that we keep having issues with are part of the CIP in terms of replacing them. And as a resident and as a council member, I would always be in favor of looking at gradual increases than putting it off so that someone else has to make those decisions, which is what my fellow council members had to do. Then they were put in the position to have to make really hard decisions because other people weren't keeping up with the maintenance or the rate increases that needed to happen. And I think that information would just help us to all be on the same page and make best decisions for our residents and for our city.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Did you have something else?
Yeah. So I realize that it's an enterprise fund and it's completely separate, but if we're talking just about residents and the nature of how things work, people are going to want to see the whole picture. In this position, we can look at the money that's generated and the money that's dealt with in the city and all these different pots and classifications and enterprises. But I think our residents are going to see the money all in one big pot and then the different payments being made out. And so, for me, when there's an ask of staff, can we get money for a consultant to do this? Can we have money to do that? Then the things we've asked in relation to those should be presented and given to us, especially when we've asked a long time ago for these things to be done and the information to be provided. And so, again, I get it, right? We have the water fund and the water fund can't cover the CIP. We have a huge list of asks. I don't think anybody's work situation has ever been where you don't have a huge list of asks where if some money falls from the sky or somebody has some windfall of money, I have a wish list that's pretty extensive of things that I would like to do. And then we have, the budgets that we work within. So for me, I'm looking at this like big picture as far as when I asked about the structural deficit and some of those other things, just again, to provide a complete picture, because while they're all separate, everything's intertwined. And when we're discussing this up here at the dais, when we're discussing this with residents, it's all tied together, because at the end of the day, we're all still going to be providing money into, whether that's the money we pay for our water rates as residents, or the measure our money or whatever the case may be. And so, again, I just want to make sure that we're, as council, provided the things that we've asked for, so that when we make these decisions, yes, we're making a decision on, the $88,000, the money's in the funds to do the study, but then holistically, has all the information been provided that we've asked for, so that we're making those decisions and can explain things to the residents when we're talking about these things. And I'll be honest with you, election season in Norco is lovely, but the fact of the matter is the timing of this and looking at when the information is going to be provided and how things are going to go, we can sit up here and have the facts. We can sit up here and have all the information. But then what happens outside of these chambers and how people get their information and what information is shared turns into complete nonsense. And so again, having all of our ducks in a row, giving all that information so that hopefully we can all be on the same page is important. So I'm just trying to keep it real. Chad, I 100% agree, that we have a long list of CIP and the costs keep going up and up and up. I just wish the staff report would have better reflected that that's the ask, because when I looked at it, I see the $88,000 and I see a need for, we need recycled water rates. And I know we need to do work there. And I get the CIP thing, but I'm struggling because I feel like we nickel and dime a lot of stuff. And we're told, oh, we don't have money for this, but then we want money for that. And, you know, obviously we're up here to prioritize those needs. And I get the desire to have a report, to make financial decisions. I'm just super torn right now because I'm not a huge fan of consultants at this time, with the exception of you. We do have a consultant here for later, which has been wonderful. But just in general, I'm just not a fan, but you already know that, so.
And I understand that, Rob, and just to highlight a couple additional items that are not on our current CIP that are our relation for me trying to find funding is now we have to deal with the inbox issue. While there is a settlement, we have no idea when that money is going to come or how much it actually will be. We have theoretical stuff, but I've got to move forward immediately to try to, which I've already getting in proposals from consultants to help the design on the treatment plant. We have to add more treatment to our existing treatment plant. So there's money there that we have to spend. That we have to spend money on construction to basically continue to use, which is still going to be, in my opinion, but it'll be part of their analysis. Will that water still be cheaper than what we purchased? So that we know, you know what, the cost of doing all this is going to end up pushing water beyond what you can purchase. So it doesn't make sense to me. That's part of the analysis the consultant will do. But it's critical things that's not funded that I need to get started, I need to work on, need to shift. But there's not, when I look and going this next 10 years, the money's not likely to be funded. The state has also implemented a leak program where now we have a mandatory requirement to minimize our leaks, otherwise we could face financial penalties. And they come up with a bureaucratic nightmare of a program to where we literally are having to analyze the age of all our pipes and all year, come up with a leak program where we're detecting leaks. We're actively going out and testing our meters, which we've never done before. We don't have staff for it. Now we hire consultants to go pull meters to test them. It's getting crazy to what the state wants to do in the name of conservation, which I support and I get, but there's no funding for it. It's unfunded mandates that we're stuck with. And I'm also doing the lead investigation. We have to go analyze every piece of lead on a water service line to verify if there's lead there on both sides. And if there is, then we have to replace it. And there's no funding. You know, so there's just a lot there. And I appreciate where you're coming from, and I value your desire for transparency and to have the full picture. And I apologize if I did not provide enough information in this report that gives you a sense that you can trust the information. But I guess what I would say is I would ask you to trust me because of what I have done. My time here is to be transparent, to do the things in the past we do as a council and deliver the things, which I think I've delivered those items that I've said I would in the manner that you expected. And when it hasn't been, I acknowledge that and try to do better. This is not to try to create chaos for the council. It is really just to get information, tell you where we stand. Staff cannot do that internally. I cannot do that. It's way above my pay grade to analyze that, to tell you what we can do and how we can do it. So that's really what I'm asking. But I appreciate and understand perspectives. I understand.
Mayor, if I can just add briefly too, with regard, I completely understand the issue of the election season and we should keep it real. It can be a contentious issue. One interesting thing with these folks that are proposing to do the study is they are already booked out in the queue. So even if you approve the agreement tonight, they're not going to be available to start till summer. We wouldn't see anything back from them until after the election season anyway. So there's a long lead time with all the different cities trying to update. So just food for thought as you consider that.
I have two more questions.
Yeah.
If I may. Thank you. And that was actually one. I had three. One was how long would it take to get the results? My other question is for our city manager, because that is a request coming out of last year's budget. And I know that there's been work done on that in terms of looking at the structural deficit. When our budget comes to us in June, Will we have an analysis ready to be presented to kind of give more information and context and historical patterns and trends to better inform our budget this year than, for instance, last year?
So yeah, we are actually working on that for you. The combined council Measure R committee meeting coming up at the end of March. So Lisette is hard at work already, working on what we talked about last year, which was that we would going into this year, we'd be truing up, looking at why we seem to always have a structural deficit and then end okay, right? So we're going to try to bring revenues and expenditures based more realistically on our spend patterns. And our expectation is at that March meeting, we're going to be able to give you a preliminary look at that. So you'll have that at that meeting.
Okay, so then my question for my colleagues would be, because I heard, from Greg, like maybe postpone it till the end of the year. Well, what if we, as sort of a compromise, it is pushing it down the road a little bit, but once we kind of look more in depth at the structural deficit to both of your points, and then look at making a decision on this when we have that information. So not pushing it out so far out. If it's in March, then bring it back in April, or if the information is going to be in June in the budget, bring it back after that, knowing that the timeline is that's going to push it back even further next year because there is a wait list, but as a reasonable compromise for looking at the item.
That it, Catherine?
Yes, that's it. That was my question to the rest of the council.
So we'll address that in just a second. So for me, first off, the whole recycled water thing, that was in action when I was still a Park and Rec commissioner. What happened is that the pipeline, my understanding is it wasn't ready. So we began to push water that we had created into the Santa Ana River. And when we went to hook up, we were told, well, we were sued because all of a sudden, because we had been putting water into the river that was now Orange County's water. So, the old saying, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And that's what happened. And it took longer than the 2 weeks we thought it would take, but it has taken years, and it's been extremely frustrating for me because when this all started out, we thought that recycled water was going to be quite a salvation in terms of water savings. In terms of the really, 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 really big picture, in my view, when I first got on council, we had a bunch of council people that had not raised water rates and sewer rates in years. So I had the really great joy of just having to jack prices up. We are not in that situation. I'm very cognizant of what Robin said. We have another discussion tonight that's going to come up that I have no doubt blue will be red, red will be blue, purple will be green, and the truth won't be anywhere on the social media. That said, residents of Norco, the big issue above us, if you keep voting for people that don't fix the water system in the state of California, it's your fault. Period. They will not put in the reservoirs. They will not put in the lines going to the Delta. The environmental groups stop every single thing we're doing, and there's no political will in Sacramento to do this. That's the problem ultimately. We do not have enough water, but more importantly, enough water storage systems. That said, Norco has done the impossible. They don't get credit for it. How many cities our size have their own water system? Like none. Years ago, Red Taylor, Bill Vaughn said, let's have our own water system because we think there's going to be water problems down the line. And all of a sudden, they put in a water system. The whole reason, even before we became a city, that Corona wanted to take everything west of Hamner was so they could take over the water system from the Navy. Water. Water is critical. It's going to get more and more and more expensive until if we don't keep the infrastructure up, or like Chad says, eventually we might be going, well, it costs so much money to have our own water system. Maybe we go to Western Municipal. 10 years from now, when Western Municipal is getting a trickle from the Colorado River, what do you think water is going to cost? Do you really think somebody's going to build a reservoir? The current administration clearly does not have the ability to do it for whatever reason. I'm not throwing any blame at them. But if we're going to survive as a city of large lots, we have two things we have to understand. If you have 20 houses on a street, or you have 60 houses on a street, a mile of road is still $1.4 million. And Norco has done the impossible. We don't get credit for it. I mean, we joke about some of the people in the past that work for us. We joke about some of the city council people that work for us. But you know the one thing they did that nobody gives them credit for? They passed on Norco. All the screw ups, all the joking, all that stuff, they passed Norco on. When Eastvale fell, Chino fell, Chino Valley fell. When I came to Norco, there were 5,000 cities like Norco. There's one left in Southern California. One. And without water, we're done. So I really heard what Robin said, and I want to trust you, Chad. But one of the things that has to happen is maybe in view of what Catherine's saying, maybe we need to get just a little bit stronger report, because ultimately what I just said, the residents don't know. And tomorrow they're going to say, they're going to raise the water rates. When the point of the matter is in 10 years, we're going to be in serious trouble. The entire state, Southern California, is going to be in serious trouble. So if we don't have a report that we can sell, that we can, I mean, right now, elected officials are like the lowest thing on the totem pole, just underneath public employees. So while we'll trust you, and I do, we have to sell it. So for me, I kind of like the idea of maybe, is there some way we could get a better report? And I also think that we need to put Kelly to work, and I think we need to do some PR and talk about water, and how important it is, and how it's vital to the city of Norco. And we need to toot our own horn. We have done these reservoirs we're doing. I mean, it's incredible what we've done. And I'm talking about councils before, when Berwin was sitting on council. I'm talking about that planning commission that years ago, they were doing extraordinary things, and they were able to figure out a way to get one of the great councils of all time to actually vote for stuff. And then one of the things that we're seeing is that the state of California is clawing back money. They're clawing it back. They're not going to give us any credit. That's just one unfunded mandate. What are they going to do when they start running out of water? The Colorado River could be catastrophic. So if we're going to survive as a community, we have to have water. And somebody said tiny steps. Is there some way we can do tiny steps? Also, you kind of scared me when you said we might find out our water system is too expensive to run. Well, we may find that out, but then 5 years down the line, can we trust Western Municipal and through them, LA Municipal, to do the right thing by Norco for water? The only conservation plan we have in the state of California is, gee, we're running out of water, everybody kill your lawn. Basically, that's all I've seen. You have to conserve. Oh, and by the way, you need to build 52,000 million more houses. So you have to kill all your lawns so we can build all those houses, so that a developer can make $1 gazillion. So I think that for me, I guess I need to see a better report. I want to trust you, Chad. I do trust you. You know I trust you. I call you the Chatternator. I mean, you have done a hell of a job with the city of Norco. You don't get credit for that. But I got to have a report that when I read it, I can sell it and say, look, and at the same time, I've realized that we as a council, truthfully, have worked our butts off for over a decade for Norco. We have worked so friggin' hard. But at this point, residents have to understand we're the tip of the spear, and we need the spear. You need to talk to your state legislators. You need to start making noise. You need to do those things, and it needs to be consistent. Otherwise, we will lose Norco through a lack of water. So I would like to see if there's some way, if you could put a report together. I really trust you feel you need this consultant, but I have to sell this to the rest of the spear. So if there's some way we could do that, I would really appreciate it. Do it sooner than later. I know right before an election, it's a terrible time because what'll happen is that people are just going to twist it. But one of the things I have to look at is I never want to put another council person in the position I was in when I got on council the first time. Remember, Berwin? It friggin' sucked. I know you did, but so that's kind of my 2 cents. So it's two-pronged. I need to see more on the report as soon as possible because if you need a consultant, I trust you, but I got to sell it. And 2, I think we need to really educate our public what our water system really is, what we actually have here, and why it's so important that it needs to expand, it needs to grow. And by the way, I'd like to link this to our general plan. I'd like to, 25 years from now, are we gonna have water? Are we gonna have water for our horses? Are we gonna have water for our ranches, for our farms? These are all very water intensive. So if there's some way I could blend that into our general plan, that we talk about water. I mean, you all know the story of Owens Valley. When Los Angeles stole all the water, Owens Valley has never recovered. They just took all their water. And that was once a beautiful place. So anyway, I'm willing to sort of entertain a vote or a motion or something in light of what I've said, or if somebody else has a better opinion, let me know. That's all I have to say. Anybody else?
I can just add a little bit, Kevin, on what you said. Some of these issues, we used to have town hall meetings, and we could have a meeting and we could discuss things more in depth and not hold people here late into the night while the 5 of us discussed something. It was interactive. People got information. People asked questions. And I think some of these things that, like, I personally am struggling with right now, it's because we've gone away from that format of having those town halls where we're right there, we're all together, we're having the conversations in a community, they're asking the hard questions, we're able to have that interaction. And on topics like this, those town halls for me prove to be very, very valuable. And not putting everything on social media necessarily. Like I agree with you, Kevin, we need to educate the public, but sometimes those face-to-face interactions in those town halls where people can look you in the eye and see, is Robin telling them the truth, or is she trying to blow smoke? Like, what's going on? Because some of those things, that's in-person stuff, right? It's not over social media. So I think we need to look at bringing those things back, and the people that want to come are going to come, and the people that don't. But I feel like there was a good core group of folks that were coming, and then that information I just feel like is a little more accurate when it's going through the community, when it comes from a function like that. And for me, I don't know where my colleagues are, but I do trust you, Chad, and I know you've done a tremendous amount of work. So if you're going to you brought up 2 things that weren't in the report, the phosphates and the leads and some of that. So, at this point in time, with the additional information you've provided this evening, I'm willing to spend the money for the consultant, again, because of the 2 additional things that you've brought up that weren't in the report that I know are pending. Unfunded mandates were actually talked about in this room last night as well. The state of California is excellent at sharing the wealth with giving unfunded mandates. So I personally am at a place, but again, I want to see a town hall where, you're there, we're talking about this, and people can ask their questions and we have some interaction, because like Kevin's alluded to, we've done a big push for agriculture in this community, and water is critical to that. And so we can't say, oh, we're ag, and then not take care of our water stuff as well. So that's just,
So if I could clarify, maybe the process might help. And again, the study is just going to be that. It's not a public forum to create the study. What will happen, as we did the last time, is once the study has been completed, then we would bring it forth to the public. When we did it last time, we brought it to Stuck and talked about the study and what it was done. We brought it to the council as a study session for the public to come, not to make a decision, just to hear the information, talk about priorities. Our intent is to get the work done over those 6 months once the consultant could finally start in July. To get the work done so that you have a report where the data is what it is, not what I'm trying to manipulate to be. It is the data. It's going to tell you how much money do we have, how much are we generating, and based off of our goals, which is if our goals are still to do the 5-year plan that's there, and it's going to be revised because now there's PFAS, now there's some other issues. Here's how you might be able to fund it. Here's your options. Here's your ideas. And that's all it's meant to do is facilitate a discussion. And absolutely, it wouldn't do any other way. It needs to be a collaborative, open process so that you can make an informed decision and the public can participate. That's all that I ever want to do, and we did the last time. It was very important to me we did that, and the council had a huge lift to do that. That was not a small thing by any means, but we did it in a very transparent way. It was a very tough thing to do, and in that process, it made us solve it, because in that particular time, we were in an actual hole. We were $2 million in the hole in our operating budget. We were selling our stored water that we had in Chino just to cover the hole. So I absolutely appreciate what councils have to do in doing any rate increase. Any little amount is never a fun thing to do, regardless of the rationale. It's not something council members or board members enjoy. It's always controversial, but this process just gives me a chance to build a report that we will then give you the plan of how we're going to bring it out to the public and to yourselves to talk about it. And in the end, we still may choose to do nothing, but it's needed to have the conversation. That's my biggest focus, is to get you that information in a meaningful way.
One question, how much will the Navy pay per month, you think?
Our current estimates, again, that's part of, I've had to guesstimate what I think the water rate might be. We've estimated them, it might be anywhere from maybe 250,000 to 300,000 to pay for water now. But right now they're getting it for free from the non-potable well.
So we're gonna be getting quite a huge bump from them. And then what about the prison? What are they paying?
You're talking about for non-potable water or
Potable.
for potable? I'm not sure what their demands are. I apologize in regards to it. And I was referring just to the lake as far as for the recycled water, what they would pay now for that versus the non-potable water they have. I don't recall what their demands are at the prison.
So the Navy base is gonna bump up $250,000 a year for filling the lake?
Correct. Or
What's
their
the,
option is,
what's the potable water?
potable water would probably make it 500,000.
So altogether?
Yeah, well, as far as their demands.
Yeah. In other words, it'll be $500,000 a year.
Well, I guess I misunderstood your question. If they went to potable water to fill the lake,
which they're not going to do.
Which, well, the reason we're trying to get this process recognizing it, at some point our well may go away. Their source of water is not potable. And so their choice at that time would be you go to potable to fill the lake, or you go to reclaim if we now have it available. Reclaim, again, depending on what our ultimate costs are, and that's what the consultant will help figure out, what our all-in money is, what we have to pay back over time, what our O&M would be. We'll be able to determine what our rate should be. And again, I predict it should be definitely lower than our current potable rate. I don't know how much, but that's what we need to work with. We've given them a preliminary, the Navy, a budget of what it might be, and they're already working on their requests for allocations, knowing that recycled water is likely coming, and that they're now going to have to start paying for it. So we've been working with the Navy in this process and making aware of what they do, and they've appreciated that advance notice because their process is very bureaucratic. So they know our target date of potentially making water available in 2025, 26, and that's about when they think they might finally get approval for funding, and we'll we'll already know with a study and the likely all-in cost that we have, here's the actual rate, here's what you truly need, and you have a more finite number for it. Study will help me determine what that actually should be.
So Lisette, would that kind of money be a bump in the cash flow for those funds? Is that or is it just a wash?
To clarify, for recycled water, it's going to fund its own operations. That's the whole goal, is you're setting a rate that will cover all our O&M costs. And then hopefully additional capital improvements, if there is any, for our own infrastructure, meaning repairing some things, adding some augmentation, whatever that may, or maybe even future expansion if we
Yeah, that's what my
find other
question
users.
is. Will this help us in terms of, will we make some on top that will help cash flow to fund other projects? Sorry.
Sort of how like the water and sewer funds are currently, where we have our operating fund and our capital fund. So at the end of each fiscal year, what we do is we look at how each fund did. The water fund has the rate stabilization put aside. It also has our 25% for operating to be set aside. Once we set that aside, we see how much is available, and that's the 1.3 million that we've transferred over to the water capital for to be able to fund those capital projects. So the same type of setup would be done for the recycled water.
Mayor, if I can just add a caveat though, that I think in a new rate structure, we might look at a more proactive way to budget for capital. So that's how we've been doing it, but a more proactive way would be actually to budget that contribution to the capital fund. So we would build that in from the beginning, so we know how much is going to go in. So both ways work, but the better practice is to budget that contribution. So that would be built into these rates.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Do I hear a motion?
In this report, so when you brought up, when you first got here, we have this savings account of water with Water Master. And we sold X amount of acre feet. We went back twice on negotiations, but a little over $1 million worth of water. So, but that's our bank, our savings account for actual product, along with everybody else. Will this study address anything towards the Chino Basin or Water Master, of what we have in storage, value of?
Yeah, I mean, it'll
As part of
obviously,
that.
it's not dollars in hand, it's water that we can sell. So
It's
it
product,
will
right.
acknowledge it as it has a value, and we will give it a perceived value based off of common rates that are sold. So if we sold that, we could get one-time money.
Right.
Because obviously what we get credit for each year for not pumping in that basin is a small amount. So we keep trickling up higher and higher and higher, building up our balance again. And eventually we can sell it. It's a one-time thing, and then we're back to close to zero, depending how much we sell. So it only gives a one-time boost. It's not an annual thing, but they will recognize that, saying you have this as an asset.
In this study?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just highlighting that.
And then, because I know we're way off topic on this, tomorrow we meet with our congressman, and then part on that is $3.1 million, $3 million from the feds to help us with recycled or reclaimed water. And we should have a status on that.
Which we technically been awarded. We just haven't figured where it's coming from the funding. And I believe our intent is to ask for even more for recycled water to keep funding that. Because there's
And the study will keep current with that also at some point?
yes, if we can define it as real money, and if
Right.
we have it, then that's something we would look at. That's going to offset those costs, because thankfully that is a capital contribution that doesn't have to be paid back. You know, it's
Mhm.
not a loan or anything. So that already sets that rate at a better position than if it was all debt. And we'll recognize that.
We have money coming from the feds. We got water in the bank. And let's have a consultant. That's.
Those are different topics. One is
No,
water.
I'm
The others
I'm
are
all
recycled
together,
water.
so. Thank you, Chad.
Yes, sir.
All right, do we have Catherine, Berwin, any other comments? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, no, I wanted to come back to the question that I guess I'll just ask Mr. Robin. Would you rather have some more information on the structural deficit before we?
No, I think I've made my point on that particular topic, or hopefully I have. We'll see.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consultant for the rate study.
Second.
Please vote.
Okay, we're good to go.
Councilmember Alleman,
She disappeared.
Yes.
and motion passes.
We will now take a 10-minute
Wait,
break.
Mayor, real quick before we take the break, just point of clarification with regard to the town hall. So I looked like there was some consensus around doing that. I'm curious as to the timing of that. Are you thinking when we get that study back, first of the year, next year, whatever, we start off in a town hall? Is that the suggestion, or let me know?
I think we need to bring that practice back just in general. And so there were different topics at the different town halls where, again, it's really about the council being accessible to the community and talking about topics that are important to the community and the council in a format other than this like intimidating, we're up on the dais and everybody's out there, and there's not two-way conversation at the town halls. There's two-way conversation. So it really could be whatever staff thinks is important at the time, but we used to have them, I want to say quarterly, and they just are gone. And I think some of the things that we're dealing with right now are because those town hall meetings have gone away.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. 10 minutes. Back to orders. Berwin's. We are going to go to discussion action items. The order of presentation for discussion items will be 1, staff report presentation, 2, council questions of staff, 3, public comment, 4, council discussion and action. We're moving to 5A, solid waste and recycling collection services request for proposal. Public Works Director Blaze to present item 5A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on a much more harmonious and non-controversial topic, we're gonna get into trash. So as you recall, last September, the council gave staff direction. You asked me to go out and do an RFP for our next trash hauler contract. And the goal for tonight is to give you an update regarding that process. I do want to highlight that as part of that the update is that the process is still going on. We are currently in negotiations into that process. We have Carrie Baxter here from R3, who's going to give a short presentation, kind of give you an update and a high level review of kind of the process and where we've done. We are going to highlight some information that we feel comfortable we can provide that doesn't impact the negotiation in general. But we at least wanted to be able to provide information to full council, kind of where we stand, and the general public, kind of where we're at. And with that, I will let Carrie jump in and give you an update.
Before you start, I really encourage the public, please, if you have comments, questions, now's the time to do it. She's right there. We don't bite. We really, at this point, I want to begin the process that we're hearing from the public also. Take it away.
Am I not close enough? All right. Thank you, Mayor Bash, Mayor Pro Tem Newton, and council members. My name is Carrie Baxter with R3 Consulting Group. Just to give you a quick background, status of the current franchise agreement with your waste hauler. It's not moving forward. There we go. Your current agreement for waste collection and street sweeping services both expire June 30th, 2024. The city council did conduct a vote back in September to formally request proposals from waste haulers. The key issues that that were focused on during that discussion were customer rates, manure collection, customer service. We're not moving fast enough, are we? And regulatory compliance. So the city hired R3 Consulting Group to assist with developing and implementing the formal RFP, assist with reviewing the proposals, and help facilitate the negotiations, as well as prepare the final franchise agreement. So tonight, I'm here just to give you a status update. Again, we are still in negotiations. It's not moving forward. Why am I having such a hard time today? There we go. Again, like I mentioned, formal RFP was issued back in September. Then the city conducted a mandatory pre-proposal meeting with all interested parties on September 21st. And proposals were received by 5 trash haulers, Athens Services, Vertec Waste, CR&R, Universal Waste, and Waste Management on October 20th. So the review process of the proposals started with creating a subcommittee, which included 2 council members, 2 staff, as well as R3 Consulting. The subcommittee was developed to participate in the RFP process review, assist in interviews, and conduct negotiations. All subcommittee members independently reviewed and scored the proposals. They scored each proposal based on overall content and hauler's ability to meet the service expectations outlined in the RFP. The subcommittee then reviewed the rates for services offered by each hauler and ranked each accordingly. The subcommittee sent follow-up questions as needed. And then once the scoring was complete, we selected which haulers to invite for an interview. After the interviews, the subcommittee completed the scoring with a consensus scoring method. And then obviously the subcommittee made a selection of a hauler to begin negotiations with. So the initial proposal scoring, we just focused on 4 of the 5 categories. Qualifications were how the team was structured, previous experience, commitment to the 1 day a week collection in your residential sector, and looking at references. The technical qualifications focused on how transition would take place to the new services that were going to be provided, operations plan, what kind of trucks were going to be out there, what kind of carts were going to be out there, customer service plan, who was answering the phone, where that was going to happen, and the diversion plan as to how much material was going to not go in a landfill. It also focused on the sustainability aspect of the proposal, the environmental impacts associated with hauling distances to the facilities, and vehicle and fuel types. And then other benefits to the city, we looked at what was in the proposal related to the education outreach plan, additional cleanups, new innovative programs, and community benefits. As you can see, most of the proposers scored relatively close in score based on those. Then we looked at the recipient rates, service recipient rates. And as you can see, there was a clear difference in the overall scoring here, where, as you can see, E scored a much higher rate. So now we are in negotiations. They are ongoing. So I only can give you a little bit of information at this point, but overall, the tentative agreement that we have drafted right now is very favorable for the city of Norco. It includes many positive, there we go, changes to the current customer services. So one being a reduction in your residential and most commercial rates as well. There we go. A cap to the annual rate adjustment, so no more than 4% rate increase to all customers' rates on an annual basis. It eliminates the fee for manure scout services, so you would no longer have a fee to have that bin pulled out to the truck. And billing and customer service will be conducted by the hauler rather than by the city. An increase in franchise fee revenues to the city, as well as additional services that are going to be provided by the hauler that we're negotiating with, that would include meeting the compliance requirements by another unfunded mandate by CalRecycle, which is reporting data on an annual basis, compliance inspections, and then waiver verifications for those that do not meet the need for organics collection. And again, as I mentioned, and Chad mentioned a couple of times, until the negotiations are complete, the RFP process still is remaining confidential to protect the city's negotiations position. And the final award for the agreement and presentation are anticipated next month. But I'm happy to answer any questions as long as they don't focus directly on an individual proposal at this point.
Robin. Catherine?
Yes, thank you for your patience as I tried to unmute. I was going back to the staff report on my iPad, and could you just review the timeline? So if it comes to council next month, which is March, and just on the current month that the hauler that we have right now, Waste Management, when that contract expires, and if we have sufficient time for any possible changeover if that were to be recommended and approved.
So the RFP actually contemplated the fact that there would be a potential 3-month extension needed with Waste Management to October 1st. So all proposers agreed to start service October 1st.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Berwin? All right, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we do, Mayor. The first speaker is Paul Ryan.
Hi, Paul. Good, good. Nice to see you again.
Honorable Chairman and council members. I'm Paul Ryan, a resident of Norco.
We know who you are.
No, hey, we got to do it for the public record, you know? My comments are not related specifically to any contract or a company, but it's relating to the regulations and also the performance within the city. And I'm focused strictly on manures and agriculture interests and so forth. In my research, where I have access to the websites and so forth of Cal Recycle and other agencies at the state, like a WebPass or Logic, in the 2021 electronic annual report for the city, I detected that for some reason the tonnage of manure reported to the electronic annual report didn't show diversion numbers coming from what is known as the RDRS system, or the Recycling and Disposal Reporting System of Cal Recycle. And that's problematic to me because we've talked about the value of manures, you know, whether it's equestrian manures or animal keeping manures, and then certainly the manures are also important to agriculture. So my point being, as you go forward in considering the programs and what's going to be in the contract, you need to make sure that everything is meeting the various requirements in 1383, dealing with that portion of 1383 on facilities and what they have to do to report. For example, where the manure is going right now, the facility doesn't have in their permit, the authority to take in manures into their facility. So they're reporting, oh, it's green waste, but it's not. Secondly, there's no record that they did what is required by the law to report to Cal Recycle under the RDRS system. So we don't really get credit for what we're really doing in this community. And that's one of the things that I'm really strong on, because as you know, I'm in this game. In fact, I'm working on stuff in the Russian River right now. But the thing is, it's very important to us, particularly with our agriculture interests and animal keeping interests, to get credit at the state. When I meet in the roundtable with CDFA, Cal Recycle, the Air Board, and so forth, at a monthly meeting, we talk about all this stuff. And I want to suggest.
I have to, unfortunately, Paul, I've got to.
Okay. Anyhow, you got my message.
Yeah, we do.
You need to go back and look at what's happening within the staff, and then also the consultant needs to carry it forward to make sure that we get credit for everything. And if you're going to give away mulch and so forth, make sure that it meets the regulations, including we're going to have to deal with PFAS.
I can tell by people writing that you've already raised some questions that we're going to be asking, so thank you.
Our next speaker is Brett Sakamoto.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. And I'm just concerned a little bit about this RFP process, why there hasn't been any, like meet and greets or town hall ad hoc meetings like we've had in the past. And in my opinion, all the bids should have been publicly open at a meeting, for everyone to see what everyone is offer, and every company should have been invited in to discuss their proposals in front of the residents and business owners. And, my one question I have, with this thing is about the franchise fee increase. How is the city going to demand more money when we're actually now going to have waste management or whoever takes over the billing and customer service issues? There's actually going to be less staff involved now when you look at that. So that's a question. There's a case Zolli versus Oakland regarding the franchise fees. And franchise fees, we're all paying for that. It's included, in the rates, whatever business it should be, not just trash, but like AMR and all that. We're paying for those franchise fees. So that's just something to keep in mind. I've had some service issues with waste management, and we've had issues with manure carts and my friends not being emptied. They say it's too heavy. We have to go weights and measures, and that was a whole nother battle. I can't tell you how many times in my commercial property, recycling carts, trash dumpsters missed, and, I get no response from local office. But I'll tell you, their corporate office role, I'm on a first name basis. He does get it handled besides Julie and our city manager, Lori. They've been really good in getting that resolved, and then, I'll tell you, I have other commercial properties I help oversee. Riverside, I got Athens, Burtech. They've been terrific over there. Very little problems. Every company's going to have its problems. So not just to, go off on waste management. So a lot of your bidders, I think looking at the rating, I'm questioning how did they get these scores? Because a lot of these bidders have won contracts away from waste management in other cities. If you look at their history in the recent years, I've been researching this, and only one bidder scored so high, like with that service rate or whatever. I want to know what that meant. Residential rates would be reduced. What about commercial manure? Our animal life keeping lifestyles at jeopardy. I know a lot of people that are reducing their horses and animals because of the manure cost associated. It's great that the scout, whoever it's going to be, is going to reduce that. And is there a backup plan if Veramontes or Mulchmaster, with all the developments, goes away? Look what happened in Synagro. They used to take a lot of our manure. And there was that big lawsuit with all those new homes built around them, and Synagro's gone. So that's another question. And then, also I know street sweeping, I found it interesting to be part of the contract. How many of these haulers actually own street sweepers? That's sort of an interesting thing that was included. That's all. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is Matt Blackburn.
Hi, Matt.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Matt Blackburn. I represent Universal Waste, but I'm also a resident here in Norco, and we were one of the proposers. I come before you tonight. I had a whole thing that I was going to write up, but after seeing the presentation, I have some comments. First of all, we talked about water and the importance of water, but the importance in our town with Horsetown, USA is manure disposal as well. And under our proposal, we uniquely had a 80-acre site where we proposed manure, we proposed fertilizing, we proposed using that to grow hay to sell back into the community. And I think a lot of those things are worth exploring before we go down the path of continuing with waste management again. We were not called in for an interview. My understanding is that none of the other haulers were called in for interviews either, and that Waste Management's being the company that's being negotiated with. That's coming from Waste itself. So my concern is, why didn't we at least take this opportunity to get all the proposers together and discuss new ideas and see what we can do better and what we can change for the future, and how we can ensure that, just like water, that Horsetown USA has a long-term disposal plan for manure, and how we can take that manure and use it for good to put back into our community, to put back into our feed stores. And that's all the things that were part of our proposal. I don't know where the rates are at, so I can't really talk about where I come in with that, because frankly, I've had absolutely no communication back since we submitted the proposal, except to be told that we were no longer in the running at this point. So I ask you to, as your RFP stated, have the interviews with the haulers. Let's talk about this. You don't have to negotiate with just one company. In an RFP, you have the opportunity to look at all proposals and talk about it. After reviewing the presentation, I find it hard to believe that Athens, Burtech, CRNR, and Universal Waste, who collectively service millions of customers in multiple states under hundreds of contracts, scored in the D category, right? Anything 70 or below would be considered a D. All four companies proposed that are good, solid, multi-million-dollar companies scored a D in the city of Norco? I don't understand that. Only one company got a B rating? It seems odd. I also have concern if it is waste management that, about a year and a half ago, I came to you because waste management was going after some of the larger barns that were using an outside hauler. And they were saying, hey, we can't afford to continue to service your city if we don't have these barns. Well, now they can reduce the residential rate. They can eliminate the scout rate. They can increase the franchise fee. They can now pay for the street sweeping. They can cap the rate increase at 4%. But for the last 20, 25 years, they couldn't do any of these things. This is concerning. Is this really the partner that, now I'm speaking just as a resident, that we want to partner with for the next 20 years like your contract contemplates? I'd ask you to consider everything I said, and I'd really appreciate the opportunity to get everybody together for interview so that we can talk about this further.
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Greg Bowen.
Thank you. I'll make it short and sweet.
Hi, Greg.
I've had some issues with them. I've talked to Greg about it. They're scouts, and we need to address this. They use the Ford truck to pull it out. They're gutless. The Isuzu trucks are the only thing that have the power to pick up the wet manure. And after rain, it's very evident that they need the extra horsepower. I physically watch them pull them out of my backyard. The drivers are phenomenal. Their customer service is great. Cindy over there, I love her. Her supervisor needs to be fired. And I'll tell that to her face. But they're using the wrong equipment. They have the right equipment, but they're not using it. It breaks down. They don't have enough of it. They bring the Ford trucks in. He literally on a truck, on a manure bin, had to drag it out of my backyard, let a groove down my driveway that thick. And I felt for the guy. I covered it up. It's no big deal. I mean, it happens. But they're not using the right equipment. And why the rains had hit and all that stuff, they missed me on a date. Okay? They just didn't show. They said, oh, we'll be there on Monday. That's when we had the big rains. They did a no-show. Now I have 2 times they missed me. So we'll give you credit. What am I going to do with the manure? We need to address that and say, hey, look, you miss a date, you come the next day or the previous day, dump it, and then bring it back and then put you right back on the same schedule. Not just miss you for a whole week. My case, it happened to be 3 weeks. So I had to literally load everything I had in the back of my truck and take it to Viramonte's over there, which I gladly did. My drivers are awesome. But the lady that's a supervisor did waste management, no benefits whatsoever. She got me extremely upset. She told us, you don't write our policy is that. And I also mentioned, I said, when you guys are out there and your drivers are dumping the loads in there, they're breaking the tops off our trash cans. And our street alone, there's like 20 of them. And I watched them and they just slam them, and it's operator error. You know, they need good operators. And when they bring it up, paper goes flying everywhere. But do they get out? It says, no, our drivers can't get out of the vehicle because of our policy. Well, then they need to have somebody go behind them and pick up all the trash that flings out of it when they're flinging it up there. And I'm not talking about the ones that are overfilled. I'm talking about the ones that the lids are closed and they're bringing it up. When they bring it up, it slams it up top and then brings it back down and the tops rip off. They just replaced one of mine. But anyways, those is what we need. If we use them, I mean, I have all the confidence in the world you guys making the right decision, but those are things that we need to address when we talk to them if they do our contract.
Thank you,
Thank
Greg.
you.
Our next speaker is Bill Naylor.
This evening, council. Just to keep a couple of items, several of the other speakers have mentioned it. The trash can lids, yes, I get my broken ones all the time when they're loading them. You know, it's kind of terrible that, you know, when you want to get a change on them, guess what? You call and say, well, you broke the can. okay, we can get it replaced in 3 or 4 weeks. Wait a minute, what am I going to do with the stuff in the meantime? It's especially bad when you have a manure can that's broken. The other thing is on the manure cans, if the lids are broken and it's wet weather like this, what happens? But it adds more weight to it. And of course, I was told that those trucks were designed to lift 300 pounds. But then when we started complaining about it, they said, well, we're going to upgrade them to 500 pounds. I don't know if that ever happened or not, but I have had a couple of times when they did not pick up. And then talk about customer service. I called when they missed me. And I said, well, what happened? Or did the truck break down? They said, well, according to our driver, you didn't get them out in time. Oh, I put mine out the day before, so I know it was out in time. But on top of that, I had to tell them, but it wasn't just me that you missed. It was everybody on the block you missed. Oh, okay. Well, they took care of it, but I just don't like people lying to me. If there's a real problem and I understand equipment breaks down, you can just tell us. It'll happen. But don't lie to us. And then one other thing, I was talking to a lady today that works on my horses, and she has a manure, big dumpster, and she says, the drivers are fantastic. They came in, they can pick it up on a routine basis, take it out, gets dumped, but sometimes it gets forgotten to bring back in. So we've got some customer service problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I have no further comment, Mayor.
Closing public comments, bring it back to council. Berwin, anything? Greg?
Well, thank you for all the public comments. Terry, Chad, you'll be able to address some of the concerns that were brought up. I think that, like Bill and what Greg brought up on customer service, and I'm not making excuses for anybody, but I think in this type of business, all 5 of the proposers customer service is important to them, but they're not going to they don't have 100% record. Okay. I think we need to just have a little conversation on, we've discussed all of these items in our subcommittee meeting. But one of the most important topics, if you could touch on a little bit, is SB 1383 that Mr. Ryan talked about, because out of all of this, I know your manure can lid is important to you. 1383 is the most important, okay, in the larger magnitude. And we can talk about hydraulics or whatever and how to set limits at another time. Okay, thank you.
To go back to SB 1383, the things that have been negotiated into the contract so far include the reporting requirements to CalRecycle, which is the EAR that I was speaking about, compliance inspections, route reviews, waiver verifications, and then regarding the RDRS, the 2021 data would not have fallen under SB 1383. That started January 1st, 2022. So any manure that was reported prior to 2022 would not have been required to be diverted, as it is starting January 1st, 2022. So future reports should show manure being diverted. And it is definitely addressed throughout the agreement that it must be diverted.
Councilman, just to clarify,
yeah,
to add on to that, I think, again, we heard what the residents are saying, and what I can say is, as we've negotiated a contract, like anything, like you highlighted, no contractor's perfect, no hauler's perfect. but we've tried to put in place language that addresses these issues. They put conditions on that and an expectation of how things should be done, when it should be done. And the issue is because for any hauler that we're using, our goal was to have them do all the billing. And the issue is about the city with all our conditions and any agreement that we do, holding them accountable to those conditions. Meaning if in the reporting that has to be done in the agreement, per the agreement that any hauler who has the agreement, we would review that. We look at those reports and they get assessed penalties and fines for not meeting performance criteria. And which includes them providing visual documentation of, you didn't pick up something, then you better show me a picture that shows it wasn't out there. Or if you're not picking up something because it's too heavy, then you're just documenting that. I mean, you're showing me a picture that it's there, but there's requirements. You got to come back by the next day and pick it up. If you fail, there's financial penalties, liquidated damages that get assessed for not performing. And that's on the city to make sure we're keeping them accountable. But we're putting in the teeth in the agreement that deals with many of these issues that the residents talked about.
And once again, it's that no deal has been inked, so that we can't provide specific information till we finish all these negotiations. Can you talk a little bit about the franchise fee at this time? That was on one of our, and if it's a no, it's a no. Just,
I think
I'm
we
fine.
can.
I mean, it was
The
brought up
city
by a
did
resident that.
Yeah, so as the agreement was drafted and released in the RFP, there were specific percentages and specific dollar amounts related to different things like edible food recovery or an SB 13E3 compliance staff person. In reviewing the Zali case, the city and R3 came together and determined that it was necessary to do a more detailed fee study. And that fee study, I believe, is still in draft form. But the fee study did identify what the actual costs were related to solid waste and how that is managed in the city. And that's how the fees were determined for the increased fee to the city.
Do we need to address anything on our scoring, how we scored? Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, there was a question about manure rates. Can you speak to that?
I didn't write that down.
I think it was a general comment. It wasn't specific about
Okay.
it. And again, I think those questions will be answered in the final draft agreement.
They were,
when
but
you-
generally the residential rates were going down, and it's my recollection that that includes manure.
I believe all rates are intended to
Correct.
go down based on what's been negotiated.
Yeah, that was our intent right now with, as you mentioned there, the scout service, no longer a separate charge for scout service. That is now included in the rate.
There may be a few additional charges that are not a regular occurring fee that are not lower than the current rates, but almost all general, regular, reoccurring fees are reduced in the proposed rates.
And Mayor Pro Tem, as you know, the subcommittee really sought that reduction or elimination of the scout service fee, as that is so closely tied to our horse properties and our animal properties. They're the ones that typically utilize that service because they're using a large bin for manure. So that's actually really in support of our vision and mission that the council has adopted to support the animal keeping lifestyle here.
And one other thing is that it was mentioned about the larger farms that use a outside service that loads the trucks and hauls that manure off. I think I could safely say at this time we're certainly addressing that. It's a big consideration on how this is going to be crafted. So we haven't forgotten about those larger ranches that do use an outside service. Is that a safe way to say that? Okay. That's all I have right now.
Catherine,
Yes, I just had one additional question. Could you, as much as you're able to, address the interview process and what that looked like?
In general, the interview process was determined based off who we felt was most qualified, who provided the best proposals, and that's ultimately who we invited to conduct the interview. So it's just basically off of our review of all the proposals, the scorings, the review of the rates, to determine who we thought was most qualified to offer an interview at that time, and then to determine, and then ultimately determine who we wanted to negotiate with.
Thank you.
that's all, Catherine?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Robin? I just have a couple of questions. So first off, I'm not on the subcommittee, so I don't have a clue what's going on. I have no idea what the process is. I know less than the people on social media. And that's kind of a message. Anyway, so, and that's by law, that's the way it works. You can't have a big open, which I would love to have big open forums, but in this case, because you can't, just legally, correct?
I'm not sure if it's legally, but
If I can speak to that, and then I'll Alexa,
Just
but
because I think it's a valid point that was raised.
so remember, our goal here is to get the best service for the community at the best rates possible. And to have an open forum to negotiate that is not going to position the taxpayer in a good light. So for that reason, R3 has been retained. We had a very strict and specific process, which every hauler consented to as participation to, for example, not collude among each other, right? That's so, and many other restrictions that are meant to safeguard the taxpayer. So that's what we're doing here. So again, negotiating, it would be negotiating against ourselves to have everybody in a room negotiating and sort of playing. That's just not, it's not smart business. We're here to do smart business for the taxpayer. So that's my statement. I'm sure Alex can elaborate a little more in terms of your legal options.
Well, that's exactly why they've chosen the request for proposal process as opposed to request for qualifications.
Right.
Because if the request for qualifications, if someone submits a Public Records Act request, we have to disclose certain things of that and make it public. The request for proposal process is, just as Lori indicated, to keep those things essentially secret, because if everyone knows what everyone else is saying that they're going to charge us for, they could all get together and say, okay, well, no one go under $500,000. Let's all, overbid the service, because
They really do that?
if they all knew what we were charging, then that's what I would do. So
Right.
that's why that process is chosen, to keep it secret. However, if anyone is interested in the proposals that were submitted, I believe after the contract has been awarded, we can disclose them. It's just only up until a decision has been made that the proposals are secret, or exempt from disclosure under the Public Records Act.
Okay, and then one of the points that was raised that kind of to my interest is it is an interesting comment that we got stuck with a contract, which I didn't vote for, but we got stuck with a contract, and now all of a sudden things can be lowered. Is there any way within a contract, can things be lowered, or are we just stuck for that 20 years? Do you know what I'm saying? What my question is? It's a general question. And again, I am assuming pretty much every comment that was made tonight was addressed. But I have no idea what's going on in terms of this by design. But can you, if you find that maybe something is too much or whatever, I mean, can you lower midstream?
The way the contract is currently drafted in the RFP,
Let's be just general.
Yeah,
Because I know you
I'm
can't.
trying to be general. I'm not going to what's been negotiated. It's just what was drafted in the RFP as it was released in October. there is a section within it that allows for the city to look at rates similar to those that are provided in the city, and, you know, if there's services that are similar to what the city is providing, to compare and halt the increases until the city's rates are equal to those that are lower. So the lower ones would have to come up to that city rate. So it wouldn't reduce them, but it would not allow them to go up any higher.
Mayor, if I may also add, that's exactly right in this case, but I would add, just in general, having been through this process in multiple agencies of different sizes, I can say this is why it can be an excellent practice to go out to bid. Because what that does is sort of reset the meter. Everyone sharpens their pencil. When there's a legacy contract, often that legacy contract just starts to build in more profit to the bottom line for the hauler. It's just what occurs. So when we use the bid process, we're able to get everybody back to a baseline. There's lots of sharpening of pencils, and we tend to get better pricing. So it does take time and effort and costs money, but it can work out. So, but generally, once you've locked in that contract, there's no way to go back and undo that
I was just curious. 'cause
yeah,
the comment-
typically there might be some, clauses that allow you to terminate, but typically those aren't very good causes for the city. Because the hauler's always interested in more term because they've locked up fixed costs, especially with regard to trucks, right? So the language typically doesn't let you go back and terminate or relook at that agreement in a really substantive way that will allow you to reduce the rates during the term of the contract.
And I was a little bit concerned when Paul talked about, for years I've been hearing that our manure helped our diversion rate. And yet I think I heard that it hasn't. We're not getting credit for it. Did I mishear? Did I not? Again, I know enough to be dangerous.
That's what I heard as well, and I would have to look into that.
So can
in
we
more
look into
detail.
that?
We've
Okay.
I can't speak to what the gentleman's talking about, but I can tell you we've met our diversion rate requirements. That's not been an issue. Manure has contributed to that, and it's only going to get even more finite with now we're complying with 1383, which manure is organic. It's included as far as the accounting now. So we will look into it, but the reality
Can you
is
do me a favor? Just connect with him, make sure you're clear.
never had a
because he's,
fine
and I'm not accusing anybody, but he's pretty knowledgeable. And if we could just get together and just sort of pan that out. And then the other comment I have is I have noticed that the trucks are not lifting things as much as they used to. And I'm not sure how to settle that. I don't know if it's a Ford or, but the point is that I am noticing, and when you have manure, let's say it gets picked up every other day. Now mine's picked up every day. But if you have manure that doesn't get picked up on Monday and you have to wait till the next day, you then are going to have a pile of manure next to that bin. So is there some way that we can not have it the next day or get trucks that can actually do the work? Because that would be a concern. I mean, if all of a sudden I had to wait for them to pick up both of my big dumpsters, I mean, I fill a dumpster every day. So I need to know that, and I've never had that problem, but I'm hearing it enough now, just like recently. So is there some way that we can make sure that their trucks are, now, I have talked to Greg about this issue, but just apparently the hydraulics are such that if you set them too high, you'll blow out front windows. So I guess you're trying to find a happy medium, but if there's some way that we can bake into this that the trucks can do the job, I would like to see that. But again, I know just enough to be dangerous. Okay, and that's all I have. Does anybody else have comments? Oh, please go, Greg. Yeah.
10 years, how we got here, 10 years ago, I stood out there. Going out to bid was the right thing to do. And so as a council, that's what we promised the residents, that, for 20 years or longer, it's always been a negotiated deal that this time we would go out to bid, which we have followed through with that. So I've seen some comments about Well, let's get all the bidders and all the representatives in a room and have them interviewed by the public. And I'm just going, what a cluster, okay? I'm sorry, you're not the decision makers on this. That's our job to do. And so take it for what it's worth, especially on the social media side of things. I think and I'm going to ask Chad to, follow up with Paul on what he talked about with the diversion rates. Paul is an absolute expert in this field, and I respect his opinion. And then just that mention on hydraulics that sometimes it's I know it's important. It's just little stuff in that big scheme, but it's just a mechanical principle, right? And that goes back to how each company educates their drivers. There's systems in place when they would drive any of these companies. If the driver can't pick up a bin, they have a procedure to follow. Sometimes that procedure falls apart. Those are some of the things that we're looking at and addressing it with, there are going to be substantial penalties for that. Is that somewhat of the direction we're going? I think that's all I have to say. I think we've touched everything that was brought up by the speakers.
One comment I would like to, the last time we went through this, we didn't give ourselves enough time. And I really appreciate that you've organized this in such a way that there's lots of time to figure this out. There appears to be anyway. So I really appreciate that. Last time, like in a month or 6 weeks, something crazy.
It was, like tomorrow.
It's like tomorrow. I mean, it was fast.
It was in December with the contract expiring like January 1st.
Right. And
it's
so
like, we don't have a hauler next week. What do you want to do?
Yeah. So it really put a lot of pressure on council. So I really appreciate the fact that you've organized this in such a way that there's time. And so I look forward to hearing about it. Anything else? Catherine?
I had one more
yeah,
thing.
Please.
And it's to give Robin credit and Chad and Lori on all the work of this subcommittee that they've done. Then one last thing on the contract portion. It's a 10-year contract, and Robin had stated that she's not going to saddle a future consul with how we're having to deal with this. There are two options for five-year extension, but I don't know if you wanted to touch on that. That would clarify it. It's just not an automatic deal at all.
Correct.
We're going with a base of 10 years, period.
The
If you
contract
would,
be
Chad.
10
thanks.
years only. It does have potentially 2 5-year extensions, but it's only on agreement by both parties. So if at that point we're dissatisfied with service, issues, whatever have been, kind of like we did now, that council at that time can simply say, thank you, but no, we're going to go out for an RFP.
Catherine, anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
I'll wait until we can discuss with all the information when it comes forward, and I'll have some things to share at that time. So that's where I'll leave that.
Erwin, anything else?
Yeah, just thanks to everybody that's sitting on that committee and working with them and trying to improve the service around here. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I concur with you, Erwin. And thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And it's nice to be kept in the dark and not know anything.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're going to be moving on now to, this is just a kind of a receive and file. We'll now move on to 5B, Riverside Transmission Reliability Project, RTRP, next steps, oral report. Lori? 5B.
Thank you, Mayor. And we did add this item to the agenda to give you a brief or report, an opportunity to discuss kind of the news we heard last week on the RTRP project, which was in this week's top story. So we did get a preliminary decision from the administrative law judge assigned to the commissioner that's hearing our case, effectively denying our request to be heard on this matter, finding that the city had not substantiated its case well enough to their liking with regard to how things have changed. So obviously we completely disagree with that. I think there's a lot of great data in our petition that explains what has changed in the last 10 years to warrant a relook at undergrounding the RTRP. However, the judge has disagreed. So we had a great showing. Mayor, you were there last week along with our assembly member, and a great number of Norco residents called into public comment to express their concern about this directly to the CPUC, which was great. So with regard to our next steps, the subcommittee, the mayor and mayor pro tem did have a discussion before this meeting tonight to kind of discuss our next steps. So we have an opportunity to file comment on that judgment, that preliminary judgment that's being made. So we'd recommend we do that. And then we would also recommend that we reply to anybody else's comments. We would assume that Southern California Edison is likely to comment. So we want to provide comment also back to them. We also did, through our attorney, request a ex parte meeting with President Reynolds, but that request was not granted to us, so that's disappointing. So we had hoped to have that here for you to approve also, but she has declined to hear us at this time. So with that, I know the subcommittee did recommend that we appropriate additional money to the Downey Brand contract to allow for that additional work. So I would ask if the subcommittee would make a motion to appropriate an additional $65,000 from unappropriated general fund balance so that we can continue to express our concerns. The other thing the subcommittee's asked us to do that we'll follow up on is to really communicate with our residents about how they can and should be communicating with the CPUC directly over the next couple of weeks. So our case will actually be taken up by the full commission March 21st. There's also another meeting before that, March 7th. Those meetings are in San Francisco at 11 a.m. on those days, but they do provide the opportunity for folks to make public comment by phone. So that's what happened this last week. Quite a number of residents commented by phone. So we're going to work together with our communications manager, draft some points for residents they feel equipped to call. But really the request that we're asking folks to make is that things have changed here with regard to fire risk since this was originally determined to go overhead. This state has had an extraordinary number of additional fires. This region is rated the highest fire risk region in the country. We've documented with fire professionals the need to consider undergrounding to avoid additional fire risk. We believe that all warrants a hearing to determine if it should be undergrounded. So that's really our ask at this point, that we'll be asking residents to help us make our case to the commissioners. I will say it's an uphill battle. The commission does not typically overturn the preliminary decision of the administrative law judge. So, but that doesn't mean they never do. So we believe that we should continue to express our concerns and fight for what's right for not just Norco, but really this region. In terms of preventing additional fires and future fire risk. So with that, Mayor, that's all my report.
Greg?
I just want to thank all the residents that called in, that have supported us all along. And just to flip things, I want to thank Mr. Blackburn for taking the time to call in, but also taking the time to go with us to Riverside City Council months ago in support of this RTRP. So, like you said, Kevin and Councilmember Grunmeyer, it's David and Goliath, and but it's the right fight to have.
Berwin, anything?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody that's been working on this for a long time to get it taken care of. And I think that, what's that saying? We are in Norco. We don't give up. We fight whatever steps we have to take. But I think now you've got people fired up that called in. There'll be more that'll call in the next time. And I think we just keep trying. If you lay down, you lose. Thank you.
Catherine,
So my only question, and I'm not asking the question to be flippant, I'm asking it because of all we've done. Is there anything else that we could do? Because I believe we've done every single thing possible that we could have possibly done. Is there anything else that we could do at this point?
Well, not, oh, we have literally done everything legally possible for us to do. And that was to file this petition and attempt to have them reconsider the undergrounding. Whether there's other options that may be out there outside above our level of local government, that might remain to be seen. But in terms of the city and our ability to act, we have literally done everything we can do. And, you know, I not to be dramatic, but if there is a fire that is caused by these overhead power lines, I know that we will all sleep at night knowing that it was not because we didn't try to say this was a bad idea. And I don't wish that on anybody, but that's just the reality of where we might find ourselves if this thing continues down this road. So
I just, with that, want to thank everyone who has worked so hard on this. And, you know, the council has been united in putting forth our staff, our own efforts, our, you know, funding. Certainly, you know, we're fighting a Riverside project, and I think we've certainly done so much more work and effort and investment. And so I want the residents to know how hard we have fought and how much everyone has done, and we've supported them in what they've done, and thank them for all of the writing in and calling and attending that they have done as well. So thank you.
Robin?
So in my opinion, we're not done. There's still fight to be had. And the fact of the matter is there's still public comments. There have been times where we've sat here for hours taking public comment. I don't see why we can't have the CPUC sit for hours and take public comment. And Norco is very good when they are passionate about something and they know something is serious, that we can sit on a phone and let the CPUC hear us for hours. That show of effort and support changes things. And the fact of the matter is, unfortunately, this day and age, not very many places have the fortitude to do that or take that kind of action. I have faith in our community of Norco, and we do have partners in Riverside and different areas that we can maybe be one of those communities that still has the fortitude to do that. And I know absolutely we do. I think we need a little bit of coordination. I think folks need maybe a few talking points, because I know it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to sit on the phone and then you're thinking, well, what am I going to say? How should I say it? Maybe I can't speak eloquently enough. Maybe I don't have the right words. At the end of the day, none of that matters. If you call in and you say, this is not the right decision for Norco, this is not the right decision for Riverside, we have a partner that has said it's not right for his ward. It needs to be undergrounded. So it's not like we're fighting Riverside, and we're not fighting the project. We want Riverside to have another connection. We just want it underground. And so I am not going to say my thank yous or like act like this is the end of the road, because for me, it's not. Norco, this is not the end. This is our call to action as far as I'm concerned. We all have fought the good fight. We put in the hours, we put in the time. We need our residents now to rise up with us and say, this is what we need to do. And we need to be heard. And if we are heard en masse, I don't have a doubt that this could be changed and the decision would go the way that we want it to go. So I'm looking forward to coordinate the efforts of our residents and helping them to give those comments that need to be given, so that we are heard by those folks that need to be heard. And like Greg mentioned before, it is 100% a David versus Goliath. It's the things that documentaries are made of, and maybe someday there'll be a documentary on this, and the things that happen that just, it blows your mind. So corruption is real. Backdoor deals are real. And that's the fight we're fighting. So I would like to be on the winning side of this one, and I think we can be.
Mayor,
Yeah,
if you get 100 people, you had to call in or they do emails?
call in.
If you get 100 people, that's 5 hours. Oh, they don't get 3? Oh, well, that's 100 minutes then.
Oh, we had 200 people. Yeah, this is really we cannot call because we're parties to the action. So we as council, we can't call, and anybody connected with the city can't call. So this is really up to residents to call in. I know it sounds impossible, but I personally think the gloves need to be taken off. We don't even know if the commissioner actually saw our petition. And so we're very concerned. I mean, one of the things, when you call the CPUC, then Edison gets to call. If they call, then we get to call, except we suspect they call all the time. We're fighting their staff over there. The commissioners, it's a totally different animal. We have really good people. Bill Asaley, he stood before them. He intends to go back and he wants to try to meet with the chair who turned us down to meet with her. I'm hoping he'll take Kelly Ciarta with him. Tomorrow, we're going to bring this up with Congressman Calvert. We're going to really try to get that done. And this is going to be I said it the other day, my favorite movie of all time is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and the only causes worth fighting are the lost causes. And I'm with Robin and Greg. I'm going to run this till there's no more ground to run. We have to fight this. And in fact, even after this decision, one of the things that I hope to point out is that one of these towers is going to loom over somebody's backyard. It will be seen over the entire northeast side of Norco. And if there's a fire, well, then we will annex Riverside. We will annex the CPUC. We will annex everybody. We will just, but it's funny. We don't want that to happen. So the big goal, and again, talking points from Kelly, is the hearing and to get a commissioner to see it and hold the EIR and say, why does this EIR not match what Edison says is there? So do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mayor. The first public comment is Art Rodriguez.
Fireman. How are you, Art?
Good. Hi, Mayor and council members. I just want to say that I oppose the transmission lines because they're a risk to this town, to this Norco, with fire, and we know how that is during the Santa Anas, and so I think it would be a big risk to have these towers up. So I oppose it.
Thank you, sir.
And our last speaker card, Matt Blackburn.
Thank you for your phone call, Matt, the other day. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to come up and thank you guys. I mean, obviously this project has a huge impact on our property and the values there, but also when you're out there, I met Edison out on the site 2 years ago or so when they were trying to buy the land and the airspace. And when you really see what's there and know that they're twice as big as what's already there, what's coming, it's very impactful. So if we can be of any help, if town hall, I mean, maybe we need to have one right under the power line so people really understand the impact of this, because it is huge. And I think, I see the social media posts where we're trying to get people out, but I don't know if the residents really understand what's really happening. So if there's any interest, I just want to let you know we're supportive, and let's come out to the site and let people see what's really going to happen and how close that river is. And, the day we closed escrow on that property, there was a fire in the river and right where these lines are going, and it's real. And so if that's helpful, we're here, but I just mainly want everyone to know, I know you guys are working hard on it, and I don't think you get the credit for it. So appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
No further comment.
Close public comments. The other thing too is I guess, Laura, you're going to be looking into the, compliance issue in terms of CPUC. You know what bothers me the most about this is the fact that there are elected officials who on a personal level wouldn't stand for this for a second. They don't want lines going through neighborhoods that are disadvantaged. They don't want natural space to be destroyed. They don't want all kinds of things. And yet they will take Edison's money to get elected. And that is just, I mean, does that person really think if they're going to compromise to get elected their own ideals, which by the way are BS, what kind of elected official are they going to be? And that's just the strangest thing to me. The Riverside, we've got a majority of Riverside Council now, but there's people over there that they talk about social justice and stuff, and it's very strange. So anyway, I guess with that, I guess we need to make a motion, unless there's some other comments. I make a motion that we proceed with this. Any kind of discussion? All right.
Point of order, Mayor Dana, do you have the motion?
I was just asked. Wanted to clarify.
What's for the money? Yes, yes. The motion as it stands, sorry. The $6.50.
Yeah. The next steps is file the comment on the final judgment and reply to any other comments. Appropriate additional $65,000 from the general fund balance. And that's where I have for.
Well, and the other piece of that too is I really would like to put together some sort of a campaign so we can let the public know, to get them to call. I'm hoping, sorry, Kelly, to lay this on you, but if I think that we need to do a full court press of some kind.
Yeah, we'll work on that. $65,000 to the Downey brand contract.
To the Downey brand
A second. She gave you a second.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay. So I have. Okay. Please vote. Councilmember Alleman?
Yes.
Thank you, Catherine.
Motion passes unanimous.
Moving on to 6, any comments this evening, city staff, anyone? City attorney. Did you have a nice evening tonight? Did you enjoy Norco? Is it your favorite city?
Yeah, that is my comment. This was fun. I hope I get to come back again. I hope Colin goes back to Turks and Caicos and just stays there so I can hang out with you guys.
Yeah. Well, that was nice. City manager. Anybody on city council? Berwin?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Amanda and her crew. Ron and his crew got the lights put up in the truck barn over at 47. They really worked good. And then the repair work they've been doing up at Marino, I liked it. I went up and looked at it the other day and everything. So keep up the good work. And congratulations, Michelle, on getting your new toys. Just don't wreck them. So thank you.
Greg? Catherine?
Yes. I wanted to ask for a future item to be agendized, to look at updating our code of ethics for council members, commissioners, and city employees.
Is that a motion or a
Yes, do I need a motion? I so moved.
yeah, I'll second that. Under discussion. Speak in your microphone, please.
What is the basis for having it updated?
Could you repeat that, Greg?
What is the basis for having the code of ethics updated?
Well, to discuss possible updates. We haven't discussed any updates and looked at it since 2021, and we've had numerous, not numerous, but we've had ethics trainings, staff, commissioners, and city council members. So I believe it warrants a discussion.
This is outside of the ethics training that we have every 2 years.
Yes, previously we did it online. The last time we did it, we did a joint session with commissioners and had a separate attorney come in, and looking at the wording of our code of ethics. I don't want to, we can't have the discussion right now, right? Because it's not agendized. But there's some pieces that were discussed a few years ago that have come back up. So wanted to have a discussion about it.
We have a motion and second. Please vote. Councilmember Alleman,
Yes.
I see nothing on my screen.
Kevin, or Mayor Bash. Sorry.
There it is.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Newton. Okay. Motion passes with Mayor Pro Tem Newton voting no.
Robin? I'm sorry, anything else, Catherine?
No, thank you.
You bet. Robin? All right. If there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Late night. Don't get used to it.